Okay, Martin, are we ready to go?
We are ready, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, I will call the September 23rd, 2025 regular meeting of the Mill Creek City Council to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance with Councilmember Paddock lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Leah, roll call, please.
Mayor Holtzclaw,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Vignell,
Here.
Councilmember Cavallari, Councilmember Steckler,
Here.
Councilmember Allison,
Here.
Councilmember Duque,
Here.
Councilmember Paddock.
Present.
Couple preliminary matters. Councilmember Cavallari informed me a bit ago he is under the. So can we have a motion to excuse?
Motion to excuse. Second.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 6-0. If there's no objection, would also like to move the consent agenda. I'm not the consent agenda. I want consent to move the executive session up after the presentations. Any objections? Okay, so we'll do the executive session after item 6 on the agenda. So that brings us to audience communication for the evening. Would anyone, I'll start in chambers. Anyone in chambers like to address the council tonight? Barb?
Barb Heidel, Mill Creek, Washington. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I wish to thank all the wonderful volunteers who came out on Saturday to clean up our city. Thank you to the Kiwanis Group, the Key Club, the Youth Advisory Board, the Cedar Cross United Methodist Church Group, and all the individuals and families, plus those from outside our city. We had almost 50 volunteers, and it was a beautiful day to be outside. Thank you to all who came and helped to make our city a cleaner, more beautiful place. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Anyone else in chambers? Is there anyone online that'd like to address the council? Okay, not seeing any. We'll have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. That brings us to our presentations. The first is our the audit results with the state auditors. It looks like you're all online this evening.
Yep.
So who's
I can start off, or I'm not sure if Ermina or Laura want to introduce, or
I'll go ahead and introduce.
thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, council members, our community and staff. Tonight, our Kirk Gadboy is our assistant auditor from the Washington State Auditor's Office, and he's here to share the results of the 3 engagements that they conducted this year. One is the 2024 financial statement audit. The next is the accountability audit for 2023 and 2024, and then the COVID-19 attestation examination. I'll turn it over to you, Kirk. Thank you.
and you should all see copies on you. Might be buried under your folder, but you have a copy of the results. Stephanie, I'm not sure if you got a copy electronically or not.
Yep.
Okay, please proceed.
I
Thank
did,
you.
Mayor.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for passing out that packet of information. I know we sent it over late, and it's just because we are really working hard right now at issuing a lot of reports for year end for the federal grant compliance. And so this is one of many exit conferences and reports will be being issued from our office here in the next couple of days. But thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to come and speak to you tonight and deliver the results of your recent audit. As Ermina said earlier, my name is Kirk Gadboy, and I got the pleasure of supervising the audit again this year for the city of Mill Creek. I think I've audited the city at least a half a dozen times over the past decade or so, and it's always good to come back and interact with the employees there at your city. With me is my coworker, Maki. Maki served as the audit lead. So Maki was really the main person asking all the questions and digging through all your records and really going through all the information and, you know, analyzing everything and running all the calculations to make sure everything was done correctly and appropriately. So yeah, together we finished a few different types of audits. In front of you, you should have that packet like we were mentioning earlier. That has our draft audit reports in it, as well as some of the information we're going to be presenting here tonight. But the other thing, what I'll try to do here is I'm going to try to share my screen if I'm able to here. And I will try to, let's see if I can get this to work. And there we go. I do have this PowerPoint of information here that will kind of summarize everything that's kind of in that packet. Of course, it doesn't contain everything that's in there. So if you do have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to me at any time after the meeting, or right at the end, we'll have some opportunity for some questions. But with that, we'll start a little bit, just in case you're not very familiar with our office, kind of who we are, what is the state auditor's office, and what's our role in state government. So we are an office that has an independently elected state auditor, Auditor Pat McCarthy. And so as an independent office in the state of Washington, we are tasked with auditing all governments in the state of Washington, starting with the state of Washington itself, down to every county, every city, every school district, fire district, every library district, every government in the state of Washington. We audit and provide that extra set of eyes over their operations. And so it really gives that public the assurance that there is an extra set of eyes on all governments in Washington state. And then beyond that, because we do audit all governments in Washington state, it really gives our office a unique opportunity to really see best practices that are done around the state at different governments. So if we see that a city is doing something really, really well, and we really think it's a best practice, something that they're doing, we can provide those best practice recommendations to all cities or all governments in the state as well, to hopefully help improve the efficiency and effectiveness of government. So that's really kind of what our role is in the state. As I mentioned at the entrance conference a few months ago, we perform 3 different types of audits: the accountability audit, financial statement, and federal grant compliance audit. I'll pass it off to Maki, and she can kind of talk about the accountability audit, and then we'll go through the others as well.
Right. Thank you, Kirk.
Mhm.
So as he said, this year we conducted 2-year accountability audit that covered 2023 and 2024. The purpose of accountability audit is to ascertain whether the city complied with state laws, regulations, contracts, grant agreements, and its own policy and procedures. And these audits also look at whether, in general, the city has adequate controls to safeguard public funds. Under the heading Results in Brief, you will see that our audit found the city's operations complied in all material respects with applicable state laws, regulations, and its own policies, and provided adequate controls over the safeguarding of public resources. For your reference, these results are also detailed on page 7 of your packet. In selecting the specific areas for further review, we conducted a number of planning procedures that incorporate reviewing the meeting minutes of the City Council for the audit period, analyzing trends in financial data, including payroll and vendor information, conducting risk assessments with several key staff and a council member, and more procedures. We utilize a risk-based approach to select areas for further testing based on those planning procedures. Included on the slide are the areas that we identify for further testing in our audit. We're not going through all the bullet points today, but we'd like to highlight a few areas, such as credit cards and fuel cards. These areas have not been looked into quite a while, and we reviewed to make sure the city has a policy in place and has adequate controls to protect public funds. Same goes for cash receipting and tracking and monitoring of theft-sensitive assets. And as we stated, it was a clean audit. The city complied in all material respects. The city received management letters in prior year audits, and we would like to briefly discuss the status of them. In accountability audit for fiscal year 2022, we issued a management letter regarding police department payroll. Since the management letter was issued in late 2024, it's too soon to come back for review, and the city needs more time to implement this recommendation. And we concluded to review this area in our next audit. We also issued another management letter in 2023 financial audit regarding outstanding checks, which was reviewed this year and confirmed is fully implemented. Now I'm returning to Kirk for him to go over financial and attestation audits.
Yeah. Thanks, Maki. So yeah, another one of the big audits we do is we review the financial statements that are prepared by the city staff, and just to make sure they're accurate and can be relied upon by any third-party person that wants to review those. So the ultimate goal of a financial statement audit is to issue an opinion on your financial statements. And the good news is we're pleased to report we are able to issue that clean, unmodified opinion again on the city's financial statements. That's the opinion you want to receive. Just as a reminder, though, if you're reading through the report, is you might see two different opinions issued. The reason why is because in the state of Washington, governments are allowed to prepare financial statements using one of two methods, either using our BARS manual method for preparing financials, or preparing financial statements under US GAAP. The city of Mill Creek has elected to use the BARS manual to prepare the financial statements. And so we are required by auditing standards to give an opinion on US GAAP. So on the statements you prepared, you get that clean, unmodified opinion. On the statements you didn't prepare because you weren't required to, we issue an adverse opinion because there are no statements to audit, of course. And then one other big thing to notice is when we do our financial statement audits, not only do we make sure that the numbers are correct and can be relied upon, but because we do our audits in accordance with government auditing standards, we also look at the internal controls behind each of those accounting systems and how those financial statement balances are created and how the staff come up with them. So even if staff were to correctly guess all the financial statement balances correctly and just randomly somehow got the numbers right, but didn't really know how they got the numbers right, we would be required to report significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls. So good news is we didn't notice anything like that. Your staff are knowledgeable in how to prepare the financial statements and all the different accounting systems. We
Kirk,
also,
can I ask you a quick question? Could you briefly just touch upon, for the benefit of the public, the difference
Mhm.
between a management letter and a finding?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we have different levels of reporting depending on the significance of the issue. And so like in a financial statement audit, if we're identifying a significant deficiency or a material weakness in internal controls, that would be reported as a finding in our audit report. It's the highest level, and it would be reported word for word in the audit report because the public should know about it, third parties would be interested in it, and it's an important item. So those are published in our audit reports. Management letter recommendations are the next level down, and they're not significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, but instead what they are is items that are still significant in our eyes and likely require council or the mayor's or executive director viewing in order to make changes, because it might require city policy changes or operational changes to correct the issues identified. So those are our two higher levels of recommendations. Management letters aren't reported in the audit reports word for word. They're just referenced in the audit reports typically. The other level of recommendation we have is called exit items, and those are like the trivial minor misstatements. They're minor errors we might find. If staff are supposed to sign off on reports and they signed off on 10, but they missed 2, we would just communicate that to them directly in an exit item. So those are our levels. Yep, absolutely. Good question. So, and then one other quick thing we are required to report is if we notice any non-compliance with laws or grant agreements or anything that was material to the city, so any kind of non-compliance, if we identified any of that, we're required to report that. And again, good news is no instance of non-compliance with any kind of laws or grant agreements, anything like that. We also didn't identify any kind of material misstatements, and while we did identify a few misstatements during our audit review, Romina and her staff are very happy to quickly address those misstatements, correct them, and the final financials that are included in the final audit report, I believe are free from all the misstatements we identified. So. And then one other thing with the financial audit is auditing standards do require us to consider certain risks each year. One of those risks would be the management override of controls. So that would be if the city has established internal controls over its accounting functions, what would be the risk that if somebody decided to bypass that, would that be detected timely? And so we evaluated that risk and then performed certain procedures to evaluate that and test that. And we did not identify any issues we bring to your attention. The last review we did for the city is kind of a unique one. This is the review of the federal grant expenditures for the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund program. And so usually with most federal programs, we would be required to perform a full single audit, which is a really in-depth review of how those program funds are expended and did the city comply with a bunch of compliance requirements. The federal government did decide, though, for this specific program to streamline the audit process quite a bit and basically cut out a lot of the compliance requirements from review and basically make a kind of shortened version of a federal grant review. And so we still look at the different compliance requirements, and we still do review to make sure the grant funds were spent appropriately and in alliance with what the program was designed for. And the good news is that we did not identify any issues that have to be reported to the city, and really the city complied with all material respects for the program funds. So just good news. So that's 3 good news so far. I even have more that I'm going to share with you. At the beginning of the audit, we did expect and we anticipated the audit to cost around $67,000. We are able to finish the audit a little bit under budget. I know it's not a lot, but I always appreciate it ending under budget and being able to give some money back. So our actual audit costs are a little bit less than we originally anticipated. The next audit for the city will occur this next year in the fall of 2026. We don't anticipate the city needing another federal grant compliance audit at this point. If that does change, please let us know immediately so we can get that scheduled for you. But right now, it's just planning on being a 1-year accountability and 1-year financial statement audit. And we did provide an estimate for that next audit because we know it's budget season soon for everyone and be able to allow you to do that. Next steps for this audit is publishing the audit reports. So these are going to be coming out pretty quick. It's either going to be Thursday or Monday. I'm not quite sure yet when they're going to be released, but either Thursday or Monday, these will be out on our website, out for public viewing. And when that does happen, you'll get a link to our survey so that if you want to provide feedback about our services, we're very happy to read that feedback and kind of know what went well, what areas we can improve. But yeah, we just encourage you to fill those out so we know how things went. And then with that, once again, just really want to thank city staff. We have a few people named here, but just really everyone we worked with at the city was very accommodating for our requests and was able to meet with us and answer our questions and walk us through their operations. And I know audit is kind of one more thing that's added on to everyone's full-time schedules already. So we just really appreciate everyone's time and energy to help get everything finished, and just was a really pleasure to work with everyone at the city. So with that, we do have time for questions. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take that now or always.
Anyone have any questions for Kirk or staff? I'm not seeing any questions, so thank you to you and your staff, and thank you to our staff for all the hard work that went into this. I know it's a chore every time it's done, but it's appreciated, especially when we come out with a clean bill of health, so to speak.
That's right.
So,
Thank you so much for giving us your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next presentation is the Friends of Penny Creek Natural Area Photo Book presentation. Mr. Doan.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Mill Creek Council. I'm Jeff Doan, and I'm the founder of the Friends of the Penny Creek Natural Area. I'm here tonight in that capacity as a resident of Mill Creek. And for context, I know you're all well aware, the Penny Creek Natural Area is a 70-acre natural space located at the northeast corner of Mill Creek. It's privately owned presently by the Farm Development, and our organization started about a year ago for the purpose of preservation and long-term advocacy of this unique and valuable space within the Mill Creek community. I'm excited to share that we started with the goal of gathering 50 community members, and we now have well north of 250 members involved. Thank you. It's very exciting, and it's continuing to grow. So I'm here to introduce one of our group members who will be presenting a gift to the city on behalf of our organization. And before I do that, I want to highlight 3 of the key points that are things that we are asking for from the city in support of our efforts. Number 1 is having the farm developer complete any outstanding requirements to hand over the property as intended to the city of Mill Creek. Number 2 is having the city of Mill Creek complete all of the required due diligence to undertake and make an informed decision of such magnitude and significance for our community. And then number three, have the city council yourselves bring forward a decision to take ownership of that space, noting the critical timing of this that needs to happen before July of 2026 based off of the current agreements. So at this point, I would like to introduce that key member of our group, Lisa Weber. So Lisa is a birder and an amateur naturalist. She retired from a career in educational publishing as well as several roles with Microsoft Education. She retired in June and dedicates her time now to conservation efforts like the Friends of the Penny Creek Natural Area. So thank you for your time. I'm going to hand it over to Lisa now, and we'll save some time for questions at the end, as well as a presentation of the gifts that we brought for the city.
Thanks, Jeff, and good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Lisa Weber, one of the 250 members of the Friends of Penny Creek Natural Area. You'll recall the purpose of our group is to support long-term accessibility, stewardship, and city ownership of the Penny Creek Natural Area. From my part of the story, during the pandemic, I started walking 20 miles a week. I didn't even know I could do that. One of the gifts of the pandemic and these walks were the birds and other wildlife in Penny Creek. It was a way of staying in balance mentally for me. And then I was excited to join the Friends group and pitch in to help Penny Creek Natural Area. I'm really happy to be part of a strong Friends community that cares about supporting Penny Creek Natural Area and is continuing to grow. My personal mission is to keep recruiting photographers with long lenses who can help document the beauty of the site. Tonight, I have the honor to present you and the city with 10 photo books and a framed photo of a river otter eating a fish. Let's go. That otter and your reaction to it when Jeff first shared it when you were the spark for the idea to create the photo books. So we look forward to seeing this beautiful piece of artwork up here somewhere. I got involved in helping to create the photo book because I've taken thousands of photos at Penny Creek Natural Area, and because of my publishing and editorial experience, I helped with photo selection, identifying the species in the photos, and editing the text. So you may know that Penny Creek is home to native plants, river otters, beavers, and other wildlife, as well as 137 bird species documented to date in eBird, which is the Cornell Bird Observatory's community science tool for gathering data to help inform conservation decisions. I've personally seen 97 of those species, so I need to get going to see the rest of them, and have submitted 94 eBird checklists for Penny Creek Natural Area. I've explored a lot of hotspots in Snohomish and King counties, and this is definitely one of the hottest in terms of birding diversity. This book captures a moment in time for the various species of plants and animals who thrive there now, and we sincerely hope they can continue to flourish for generations. We donated 4 copies of the book to the Snow Isle Library. The Mill Creek branch is excited to add a copy to their local history collection that they're just starting to build, and 3 copies will be in active circulation. 1 copy is ready to be checked out as of today. And Jeff also donated 2 of his personal copies to the Penny Creek Elementary Library. I'd like to acknowledge key photographers and volunteers for the photo book. Aaron Doan wrote the first draft of the book and was a strong member of the production team. Michael Lowell, thank you, took many of the beautiful photographs in the book and captured the river otter photo. Stephen Brown is not here. He also contributed many excellent photos, and we listed all 27 contributors on the last page of the book. One of the best parts of the Friends group is that we're a public group on Facebook, and anyone can join. We share photos, news, events, and ideas and plans for being good stewards of the Penny Creek Natural Area. The photo book was entirely funded by small contributions from the Friends. We thank the city for your past engagement and interest. To recap the steps that the Friends are asking the city to take, please have the farm developer complete any outstanding requirements to hand over the property as intended to the city of Mill Creek. Have the city of Mill Creek complete all required due diligence to make an informed decision and keep us, the Friends, informed on progress. Have the city council make a decision to take ownership of the space prior to July 2026. We are ready to partner with staff and the council to support these steps. So these photo books and the framed photo symbolize our commitment to Penny Creek Natural Area and to you. We invite you to enjoy the books and visit the site. All council members and candidates are welcome to tour with the group. When we thank you for supporting Mill Creek's natural areas, we hope that Penny Creek Natural Area will remain a permanent, accessible, and protected space with community partnership every step of the way. We now open the floor for any feedback on our requests or comments regarding the city's plans to take action on Penny Creek Natural Area.
Thank you for all you're doing. Is Jody still here? Do we want to do wanted to do a photo with you guys in the picture? Yeah, let's come on down. Yep. Sure.
Can we approach?
Sure. Yeah,
Can you approach?
Yes, you may.
You may approach the dais.
Thank you, Jeff.
While Jeff's doing that, I just wanted to give you my 2 cents of thank you for your civic engagement. That's what makes a city great, and you are making us a greater city by doing this. Thank you for getting involved and making a statement. Thank you.
Let's go down and grab a picture.
Jeff, I'm sorry I couldn't be there tonight. If you leave my book at my seat at the dais, I will be able to get it. Can you hear me?
Yes, he said he left with Martin.
Okay.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I don't want to see that in your office, man.
So my name is Stefan Gefter, and I'm also a member of the Friends of the Penny Creek Natural Area. And I just want to announce that we have adopted the west side of 35th Avenue from 132nd Street all the way up to the light, I believe, at 144th Street. Mill Creek Parks and Rec have the west side. And so now the east side, which is adjacent to the Penny Creek Natural Area, is going to be covered. And our first litter cleanup is scheduled for Saturday, the 4th of October from 1 to 2 p.m. And we will have vests and pickup tools and hopefully a lot of attendees. And we'd certainly like to take advantage to invite all of our friends from Mill Creek City Government to join us in that very noble effort to help keep 35th, as clean as possible.
Thank you again for all you guys are doing.
And I believe we have a little bit more time, so I just want to check and see if there's any questions or discussion with the council that you'd like to bring forward.
Councilmember Stecker, are you pushing your button because the light didn't go on?
I just want to make that comment, which I did.
Okay. Any questions for Jeff? Do I see Stephanie's hand up? I don't think so. We'll be having discussions in the coming months on that important decision.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for the book.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to bear with me because we got 4 proclamations to go through, so hopefully my voice is going to hold up. For the first is for the Filipino American Month proclamation. And I thought it was appropriate that I bring in and wear what I was given during the consular outreach a few years ago. So I'm going to don this while I read the proclamation. This is a proclamation of the city of Mill Creek. Whereas since 1992, the Filipino American National Historical Society has been celebrating October as Filipino American History Month, across the United States. In 2009, the month was first recognized by the U.S. Congress. The official theme for FHAM 2025 is From Quotas to Communities, Filipino American Migration and Movement. And whereas in 1965, U.S. Congress passed the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act, which became the first federal immigration law to eliminate national origin quotas that had barred or limited Asians from entering the country. Also known as the Hart-Celler Act, this landmark legislation opened the doors for thousands of Filipino immigrants to migrate while allowing for families to reunite and to establish multi-generational communities across the country. With this new federal law, the Filipino American population increased significantly from 176,000 in 1960 to 775,000 in 1980. Today, there are over 4 million Filipino Americans in the U.S., making them one of the largest Asian American and immigrant populations in the nation. And whereas nurses, engineers, physicians, domestic workers, teachers, and others sought opportunities and made the U.S. their home, bringing with them a rich legacy of resilience, labor, and cultural heritage. And whereas this year is commemorating the 90th anniversary of the 1935 Filipino Repatriation Act and the 60th anniversary of the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act. And now, therefore, I, Brian Holtzclaw, the mayor of the city of Mill Creek, on behalf of the city council, do hereby proclaim October 2025 as Filipino History Month. Signed this 23rd day of September 2025, and I have a brief statement to read before we go down and present it with the group that's here. The city presents this proclamation to Ellen Abelera, former Director, Washington State Commission on Asian and Pacific American Affairs, and CEO of Filipino American Resources for Educational Advancement, Culture, and Technology. The city has had the pleasure of working with Ellen on events focused on supporting the Filipino American community. So let's go down and present the proclamation. Okay, and our second proclamation tonight is the Hindu Heritage Month proclamation. Sip of water. Or I get too parched. Okay. A proclamation of the city of Mill Creek. Whereas Hindu American Awareness and Appreciation Month seeks to bring local awareness, recognition, and acknowledgement of the significant contributions made by Hindu Americans across the United States. And whereas Hindu Americans represented diverse ethnic backgrounds, including individuals of Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Malaysian, Indonesian, Afghani, Nepali, Bhutanese, Sri Lankan, Fijian, Caribbean, and European descent. And whereas our nation has greatly benefited from Hindu Americans, especially through classical Indian art, dance, music, meditation, yoga, literature, and community service. And whereas the year 2025 marks the 132nd anniversary of when Hinduism was officially introduced to the United States at the 1893 World's Parliament of Religions in Chicago, while October holds significance as the birth month of Mahatma Gandhi, and often when major Hindu holidays such as Navaratri, apologies if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, and Diwali are celebrated. And whereas Hindus are primarily an immigrant community and most Hindu immigrants come as students in search of better economic opportunities, or to unite with family members, while others have arrived after facing religious persecution in their countries of origin. And whereas despite their positive contributions, Hindu Americans face stereotypes and misconceptions about their heritage. Now therefore, I, Brian Holtzclaw, the mayor of City of Mill Creek, on behalf of the city council, do hereby proclaim October 2025 as Hindu American Awareness and Appreciation Month, signed this 23rd day of September 2025. And a quick statement, and I am going to apologize in advance if I butcher the pronunciation of this name, but the city presents this proclamation to Vinay Singh and Suman Prasad. Vinay Singh represents Hindu Swayamsevak Sangh, a national voluntary nonprofit social, educational, and cultural organization that aims to coordinate the Hindu American community to practice, preserve, and advance ideals and values of Hindu Dharma. Suman Prasad represents the Coalition of Hindus of North American, a grassroots advocacy group representing the Hindu community across North America to protect the collective interests of Hindus by encouraging meaningful participation in local communities by educating the public about Hindu heritage, traditions, and values. So let's go down and a photo opportunity. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here on behalf of my team and Hindu American community. We accept and thank you, Mayor, City Councilor, and city staff for processing and awarding the proclamation during this festive season of Navratri. This proclamation sends an impactful and meaningful message to the Hindu American community in city of Mill Creek area and helps educate all Americans about our incredible tradition, customs, and culture. Over the last few years, there has been significant growth of Hindu Americans in region. We have been contributing to all aspects of public life to our vibrant and diverse social fabric. It would bring the residents immense pride and gratitude to know that the city recognizes the contributions of Hindu Americans here. I am happy to share that the Hindu American community, in collaboration with various community organizations, is engaged in driving a service initiative called Seva Diwali, a food donation campaign during this festive season and contribute back to local foods bank, the underserved in our neighborhoods. In 2024, during Seva Diwali nationwide, we donated more than that 700,000 pound food to local food banks and shelters. Thank you again for proclamation and we look forward to continued engagement with City Council on various community service initiatives and thanks again.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, didn't see you.
On behalf of Coalition of Hindu of North America, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Mayor, City Council members, and dedicated city staff for recognizing October as Hindu Heritage Month. The proclamation is not only an acknowledgement of our rich tradition and contribution of Hindus, but also a reflection of the values we share as a community, which is pluralism, respect of diversity, pursuit of knowledge, and service to the society. These are the same principles Kohona stands for and work to advance every day. Your recognition today strengthens our resolve to continue delivering on that purpose of educating and raising awareness about Hindu heritage, countering misinformation and bias, and empowering future generation to be proud of their roots while being active, engaged citizens of the city and this nation. We are truly grateful for this honor and pleased to work alongside Mayor, Council, and the city staff in building communities rooted in inclusivity, harmony, and mutual respect. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, I think that now brings us to our third proclamation. This one is for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This is a proclamation of the City of Mill Creek, whereas October is annually recognized as National Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. The Domestic Violence Awareness Project Advisory Group's theme for 2025 is With Survivors Always, allowing us to explore what it means to be in partnership with survivors towards safety, support, and solidarity. And whereas domestic violence accounts for 15% of all violent crime nationwide, and domestic abuse hotlines receive approximately 19,000 calls per day. Domestic violence touches every community in this nation, and Americans of every race, religion, and background are affected, and its consequences transcend generations, impacting children and reshaping entire families. And whereas although progress has been made towards preventing and ending domestic violence and providing support to survivors and their families, important work remains to be done. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month is an opportunity to start the conversation about this important issue in all aspects of life and show those impacted by domestic violence that they are not alone. There is a need to provide education, awareness, and understanding of domestic violence and its causes and consequences. And whereas every survivor should know that they are not alone and that they deserve better, and that it is necessary to keep spreading awareness, changing culture, supporting survivors, and creating opportunities to prevent violence by intimate partners. And whereas local programs, state coalitions, national organizations, and other agencies nationwide are committed to increasing public awareness of domestic violence and its prevalence, and to eliminating it through prevention and education. The City of Mill Creek recognizes the vital role that all citizens can play in preventing and one day ending domestic violence. Now therefore, I, Brian Holtzclaw, the Mayor of the City of Mill Creek, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim October 25th as National Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month in the City of Mill Creek. Signed this 23rd day of September 2025. And finally, Cybersecurity Month. No, that was a thing. A proclamation of the City of Mill Creek, whereas National Cybersecurity Awareness Month emphasizes making cybersecurity a shared responsibility and empowering our community with knowledge and resources to protect their digital lives and promote safe online practices. And whereas digital technologies touch nearly every aspect of American life. And whereas critical infrastructure sectors are increasingly reliant on information systems and technology to support financial service, energy, telecommunications, transportation, utilities, healthcare, and emergency response systems. And whereas the City of Mill Creek relies on digital information systems to support essential functions, emergency response, and public safety services. And whereas advances in technology bring increasing threats of cyber attacks that can cause financial losses and privacy breaches. And whereas education and collaboration enhance our cybersecurity posture, encouraging vigilance and proactive behaviors to prevent cyber incidents. And whereas the City of Mill Creek is dedicated to identifying, preventing, and responding to cyber attacks to protect sensitive information and ensure operational continuity. And whereas we observe the 22nd anniversary of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we recognize the progress in cybersecurity education, the need for ongoing vigilance, and the professionals protecting our digital world. And whereas the city of Mill Creek joins the nation in recognizing October as National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Now therefore, I, Brian Holtzclaw, the mayor of City of Mill Creek, on behalf of the city council, do hereby proclaim October 25 as National Cybersecurity Awareness Month in the city of Mill Creek. Signed this 23rd day of September 2025. October is a busy month. Okay, that brings us to our last presentation of the evening, the scoping of the EIS for Southtown Center.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor, good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Bryan, Director of Community Development and Planning. In advance of our October 7th meeting, where we'll be doing an environmental impact scoping meeting, I thought it would be a good idea just to kind of touch bases and talk about what the heck a EIS scoping meeting even is, and just kind of walk you through the process of an EIS. Some of y'all may have gone through this process, some of you maybe have not, and I just thought might be worth just spending hopefully just 5 or 10 minutes just reviewing what the process is and what council will be asked to do and what input you'll be asked to provide, and just kind of how it fits in the overall process of the Southtown Center. As a result, we're hoping to, like I said, understand the EIS process. We're going to be going over what an EIS is, what the scoping is, city council's role, key takeaways, and next steps. So what is an environmental impact statement? It is required under SEPA, which is another obnoxious abbreviation. Which is part of our State Environmental Protection Act. So what this is our code has a series of steps that are required by this for any development, that they have to demonstrate that the development's not going to have an awful environmental impact. And so what this EIS is a tool for disclosure, and it provides an alternatives analysis and mitigation. What this means will be the EIS process is something that is a good thing, because it is how we talk about what are the potential negative effects of a development and how can we mitigate those effects. This is not a permit. It's not binding to the city. Again, this is just about us identifying issues and identifying mitigations. And it also helps protect the city and future developments from legal challenge. The EIS process is a long and arduous one. So it starts with a determination of significance. That for our own process will be coming out probably this week. We'll be declaring a determination of significance, which is us saying, guess what? We're redeveloping 55 acres. That's going to be an impact on the environment. Once that determination of significance is started, it kind of kicks off the whole process. Then we'll have a meeting to scope, where we will define issues and identify potential concerns that need to be studied by the environmental in our environmental impact. As a result of that scoping meeting, and that during this period, the public will have an opportunity to convey their concerns and what they think should be considered and flag their potential issues. We'll go into the draft EIS process, where we have a technical study that will be doing it. They'll be presenting their findings to the public for review. When the EIS is complete, we'll readdress comments, we'll refine the analysis, and then we'll have the final EIS. And then when we get to the period where we are ready to adopt a master plan, we will have a fully informed council where we've identified all potential impacts and mitigation. So what is scoping? Like I said before, this is a step where the city, public, tribes, and agencies shape what is going to be studied. It determines which impacts and alternatives are to be included. And it also sets the boundaries for your EIS. Again, this saves time and cost. Council's role in all this is we're confirming the alternatives are the right ones to study. Usually when you study alternatives, you set 2 or 3 options. You have the no action option, the status quo. You have the lower density option, where maybe there's not as much growth as we kind of planned for. And then there's the higher density option. So we chose, all right, maybe this is one where you go a little bit higher than what we originally anticipated, but it's good to study. We'll go into that a little bit later. But we define the alternatives of what's going to be studied. And then we're going to identify priorities. What are our key issues? Housing, transportation, stormwater, aesthetics, economics, that kind of thing. And then we represent community concerns raised so far. Things that you've heard, things that you read, things that have come along, just things along those lines. Now's the time to capture those with our consultants to make sure in that public comment period so that can be studied. taking the long view. So the tricky part with this is, we want to kind of take the long view on this in that, you know, the council preferences right now might not reflect maybe planning needs in 10 years or in 15 years. And so when we set our alternatives, sometimes it's normal to have a higher intensity development than what you currently anticipated now, because you never know what the state's going to do. You never know if the state's going to be like, oh, actually, everyone has to go up to X amount of stories. So it's usually a good idea just to have just because all you're doing is studying the potential impacts and studying mitigation. So a lot of times you'll want to just go maybe a couple stories higher than you originally envisioned, just because you never know how it's going to go in 10 years. If people are like, we really wish we would have gone a higher density, but I can't because our environmental impact statement was only going for a certain level and now we're going to be exposed. So the idea is that you want to go overshoot just a little bit, maybe what you're initially planning, just so you can kind of, like I said, take the long view and kind of protect yourself in the future. Again, studied alternatives are not binding. So when we come and if you see the alternatives, that's not a commitment. It's just, these are the potential impacts. These are reasonable density scenarios that could be studied in the future. But the main idea of the EIS is that you're trying to future-proof the plan, because what we're doing is we're EISing and we're studying the whole development of the sub area, and then that's going to help the developers in the future do their development. Best practices for council: stay focused on big picture alternatives. Ask what information do we need to make a confident decision later. Don't prejudge outcomes. Keep the process open. Keep it loosey-goosey. And then keep public input serious. Take public input seriously. Scoping is the best time to capture broad concerns. This is the time to study these things. So key takeaways: EIS is a study. It's not a decision. Scoping is about setting the questions and not necessarily deciding the answers and what the impact's going to be. Studying higher intensity means future flexibility, not an obligation. And then finally, council's role is to shape direction, ensure defensibility, and represent the community. With that, like I said, I tried to keep it brief. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. And if they're really tough, I'll punt to probably someone else. I see Justin's in the room. So,
Councilmember Steckler?
A quick question. I know we did a wetland study on the RCC. I was curious, we didn't do an environmental impact study on that one. Is that forthcoming, or is that something we didn't need to do because of what we were thinking about developing?
oh yeah, that'll probably be coming.
That'd be forthcoming. Okay, great. Thanks.
Jeff, could you talk more about the alternatives? So for the no action alternative, what does that mean? That doesn't necessarily mean nothing happens, nothing ever changes. Is the baseline? Because we've already changed the zoning.
Yeah. So
So is the baseline going to be the old zoning of what could have been developed if we hadn't changed it?
So that's correct, Mayor. So the baseline here, the no action would be if you just kept the current development intensity levels at 5 stories, current and no setbacks. That's just the no action scenario here is what's currently zoned for now.
Right. So no action doesn't mean nothing happens. It just means what could happen at the lowest extreme.
Correct. It's the baseline, the current development scenario now.
And then talk about the other end of the spectrum with the alternatives. Are you going to anticipate looking at a scenario that looks at theoretically what the full build out would be, or are you going to go something less than that?
So the other end of the spectrum is probably to be discussed at the October 7th meeting, and how do we define what that maximum build out is? That could be 7 stories, that could be 8 stories. It all depends on whatever council wants to decide. The key thing to recall is you want to go what's a reasonable number, because if they're studying the maximum impact, you don't want to pick something like, oh, we're going to just study 20 stories and we'll be good up to 20, because the impact of 20 stories or something like that could be significantly higher than the impact of 8 stories. So you want to choose a reasonable number that just goes a little bit more than what you maybe originally anticipated, just in case conditions on the ground change.
But we're anticipating doing this as a planned action EIS, correct?
Correct.
So what that means is, the reason why the upper limit is important is because with the planned action EIS, when an applicant comes in, as long as what they're proposing is within the range of the impacts that have been studied, they're covered, they're good to go for the environmental review under SEPA. But if they wanted to do something that we supported that is outside of the range of what was studied, then they're going to have to do additional environmental work in order to analyze that. So that's why that becomes an important decision.
Correct, Mayor. That's what I was saying. It's important to take the long form, at least for the study, because the conditions right now might dictate, we only want 6, but you never know, in 10 years, in 12 years, we might find out, actually, maybe 8 was the way to go. You want to be able to create coverage and make sure that you're maximum and that you're using the opportunity to study impact.
Yeah, and to reiterate, having that higher action on alternative study is not a decision to do it. It's just looking at what the impacts are. So you've looked at the potential range of consequences. Councilmember Paddock?
Cost of that water study, is it significant additional cost to study something much larger or?
Well, that's why
negligible?
you want to go like a reasonable, potentially higher scenario, is because you don't want to spend a bunch of money on a scenario that will never ever be considered. But that's already baked into our costs, and so that's already baked into our budget and what was proposed by the negotiated contract with GGLO.
I think the governor on size may ultimately be stormwater control. And that might dictate what can be done in there, where we have room to do stormwater. But, Stephanie, did you have any questions?
I was gonna say microphone because I couldn't hear Sean very well, but I think I got the gist of it.
Other questions? Okay, this is coming back to us in a couple weeks, or when are we doing the scoping?
Correct, Mayor. October 7th is the
Okay.
EIS scoping. And then the determination of significance should be coming out this week, so that'll start the public comment period.
Okay.
Yes.
Great,
you.
thank you, Jeff. Okay, per our adjustment to the schedule, the council is going to adjourn to an executive. No, we're not going to adjourn. We're going to recess. The auditor would not like me for that. We're going to recess to executive session to consider the potential acquisition of real property pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1 I. No action will be taken. We estimate we're going to need 15 minutes, so with a bathroom break, we'll recess to executive session until 7:15.
I have this issue because all the time they're like, oh, you get it by the 13th. Like, great, I got Argo. Gotta get this iron off. And it's like, all right, well, it's actually September 8th. Well, I don't want it. I do not need it. Like, and then there's. Or you got two. You really want two marathons? Do I really want? No, but I do want that. Well, oh my gosh. That's for me. Oh my gosh. Where's competition? Let's go. So. Congrats, guys. The Liners Ball Fest that they're meeting. I think the oldest like all week. My sister is slowly finding herself becoming what's called sorry, for girls, what's a troop leader. She's eventually gonna the best. Because basically she had no intention of this at all. Her daughter got into it, and then she was like, "Oh, I can help out. I do archery for fun." So she started teaching archery. Next thing you know, she's got like a little community of girls on her. She's like, "Well, and then she's like, well, I can also teach you how to fire." I'm like, oh, fire skills. So now like, she's like, I think I might be a troop leader now. Because the other troop leaders like, so we need active. I'm really sad. This downside to have two boys is I can't do Girl Scouts because Girl Scouts is yeah.
Okay, Leah,
Yes.
the council concluded its executive session at 7:07, and even though no action is being taken since we noticed that we would be in executive session till 7:15, we will remain in recess until 7:15 and then reconvene.
Thank you.
So just word of advice, mics are still hot, so make sure you turn them off.
We were still hot there, so Laurel caught us. It's just maybe.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
2-minute warning, 2-minute warning.
I was going over these, invoices. Yeah.
Sure.
Leah, would you go ahead and queue up the presentation?
Yes.
Thank you. Go off the breakout rooms.
Okay, it's 7:15. We'll reconvene back into a regular session. We have no old business on the, new business on the agenda and no proposed initiatives, which brings us to first of our 3 study sessions. First one is on the Public Works Maintenance and Operations Facility Location Study Design, discussion.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. We'd like to kick that off, and then I'll turn it over to our presenter in a minute. I get to play memory lane thing. 2008 or so, we worked with makers on a facility study. Way back then, what are we gonna do? Remember, we were all in this building. Things happened in 2015. We moved some stuff next door, and police quit racing through the parking lot. The little kids program, the preschool pals wasn't here with police racing by them, but we've had a problem since 2008, but we've been kind of pushing it off. Think back about 2012 or so, we looked at the Silver Lake Water District property was potentially becoming available. 2015, we got an appraisal on that. We thought about the couple of acres there that they didn't need on the front part because they were just going to keep the tank, and they ended up moving out to the east. We looked at that, but about that same time, we said, well, we got the Cook property. Let's look and see what we could do on Cook property. So 2017 is when staff did a partway through a design to say, could we put a building up there? And it's remarkable. You look back at the 2015 comp plan, they referred to it as a vehicle storage building, which is kind of a weird thing. It didn't really consider all the facility needs that we've been talking about, but that was happening in 2017. Wasn't enough space. The site wasn't as big as people thought it was. All those things, you've heard that story before, but it then changed from being a facility into a study for a facility in about 2020, 2018, CIP 2020. COVID happened and lots of things, but you start thinking about what happened at that point in time. We went from a kind of a crew where we were just kind of mowing and blowing, started to deal with other things. How do we build our capabilities to be a more effective public works yard? And one of the first things that happened kind of secretly was we built bunkers for salt and sand up there on the Remillard property. If you've been up there, you've seen that. Before that, when the sander got empty, we drove it to North Everett to the WashDOT yard up by Community College and got a new load of sand and drove back down through the snow and put the sand and the salt on the road and then went back again. And somebody said, that's kind of crazy. So they took advantage of a paved pad up there, built some bunkers for those kinds of things. That was the first kind of step at using some property that was outside of this facility for public works. About 2024, Huntron decided to reduce their space, and we said, hey, we could use that. So we moved a lot of the material storage and the just stuff that was here upstairs, particularly in the building, over to Huntron, spread it out, got much better use and accessibility for things over there. And that allowed us to move the crew location. It used to be like this to get dressed in the morning with lockers. It was worse than any gym you've ever been in. Moved that up to the mezzanine, gave the crew a little bit more space. Still not beautiful, and you've seen the pictures, but it's much better than it was. And that allowed us to give us a better place for our equipment. And so a lot of the things that Keegan has been doing, in particular, his whole crew, has been getting a better place for equipment, for materials, and for people over the last couple of years. But we're kind of up against the edge. That's the inside part of it. Outside, what have we done in the last 5 years? We bought a new bucket truck, then we got the switch and go truck that gave us a larger snow plow and got the arborist box and a flatbed. We bought a mini excavator, and then we bought a full-size sweeper, and then we needed a loader to go with the sweeper, and then we needed to have a place up at Dobson Remillard to offload the sweeper. We've got some CDL drivers. We've got 2 new crew members. Lots of new things have happened. Little things like a pressure washer trailer we didn't have space for before, but now we've got that equipment to do a better job. Surface water, you've seen this contract for a lot of work. We talked about spending $300,000 for surface water work that we just had to catch up because of ecology. But we dream of taking that money and putting into people and equipment that allows us to do this, because we're going to be in the business of surface water utility forever. It's not going to go away. We've got deferred maintenance we're trying to catch up on, but again, self-performing these things is not going to go away. So more equipment, more people is where the future is headed. So we need a good facility. Just recently, we've been renting larger equipment. We rented a couple of dump trucks to tear up some sidewalk and get rid of that. There isn't even enough room to drive the dump trucks through the yard here. We'd love to have full-size snow plows. WashDOT's not very happy with what we did the last couple of years. We take off RPMs with our plows, but Keegan would love to have bigger plows. That's bigger trucks, CDL drivers, we've got that, but that takes space to do that kind of thing. You guys have dreamed about getting a Vector truck. Our legislators said, hey, let's get your Vector truck. And I've kind of said, time out, no place to decant it, no place to park it. That's kind of equipment. You can't just park out in the yard and let kids climb on it. It's dangerous, etc. So we're at a place where we need to do something different. So thankfully, we got to the point, you got to the point as a council to say, let's have this maintenance facility needs assessment. Rish Uckel is here from Makers Architecture. They were here 20 years ago, and they're back again to help us this way. A whole new crew, but Julie was with us before. It's kind of fun to talk to her about the old days. Rish came to us in May and gave us kind of an interim report. We talked about lots of different sites. We narrowed it down to kind of a short list. And so Rish is here tonight to give you kind of the update on the recap of where we were, an update, and talk about the next steps. So I'm going to turn over to Rish Uckel to take from here. Thank you, Rish.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for the introduction and the history lesson. I'm going to talk about the future. So good evening, Council. Good to be back here to the second installment of the study. So I'm going to briefly talk a little bit about the overview of the project, just a reminder, also a reminder of the existing conditions and the space that's needed in the future. And then, building on the last conversation. Is it better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on, let me just. How about this?
Better.
All right. So I'm going to talk more about the existing conditions and the space needs in the future, and then focus today's conversation on the site selection process, and then close out with next steps. So project overview. So our early conversation was about estimating the space needed for that future public works facility to serve your community for the next 20 years and potentially beyond. Today's focus is really about the sites that we have figured out as part of the site selections process, and that would be part of the consideration. This is the project timeline. So we are about just under a year that we started the project, and this is the final council briefing as scoped today, and then we have a short study memo that we'll be sharing with staff after this presentation. So existing condition and space needs. Quickly, Mike touched on a lot of the history and how public works has evolved over the years. Sharp is out of capacity. This site is inadequate to support the operations today. And if you think about the future, you cannot expand on this site. It's also not compatible with the Southtown Center vision and everything that you're planning for this part of town. So thinking about the future, we are future thinkers, right? Your community is growing and getting diverse, as we heard from all the proclamation. So the public works should ideally support your community, not just for the next 20 years, but beyond. And we also want to think about potential annexation if that's a possibility in the future. You all understand this is a big cost, but it's a generational investment. So keep that in mind, and keep that in mind, this could be phased over time. So bottom line, how much space do you need? So you need approximately 3 acres minimum to support your 2045 or the next 20 years needs as you are growing. But ideally, you need another 2 acres. So a total of 5 acres to support any annexation scenario that you may consider in the future. You also need buildings, right, on that site. So about 16 to 38,000 square feet of building, and also more covered storage for supplies and your fleet assets. And ideally, those are covered, but as budget allows, and you can build them over time in the future. So now getting into site selection. So we started working with our real estate consultant, and we cast a wide net for what you have here. So we were not restricting ourselves to within the city limits, but we also expanded to the urban growth area. We want to look at everything that's 2 acres or more in size, and we want to be cognizant of residents, and so we wanted to stay out of the residential areas, given that public works is light industrial operations in all sense. So what we found was approximately 40 parcels that kind of met that criteria. And we started to dive deeper into shortlisting these sites. So we started doing more research into what sites are available, also did targeted site visits, looked at the wetland that you have here, and we started to limit ourselves to the minimum 3 acres that you can use. So 3 acres usable area was a big factor in our analysis here. We also looked at ingress and egress and the viability of that, because you have big trucks, as Mike mentioned, large heavy vehicles. Circulation is very important, how you maneuver. Getting a CDL is the first step. You got to maneuver those vehicles, right? So it's important. So that's why we also considered the sites that are provides that viability for ingress and egress. We also want to make sure the site is within a mile of key arterials or highways, because these trucks have to get on arterials quite often. And finally, that public works site needs to be ideally compatible with the neighboring property types. So we looked at all of those while we were shortlisting the sites. So we landed at these 5 sites that you can see in no particular order. These are the Pacific topsoils out in Northeast Mill Creek, DRCC, that is the only city-owned site that met all this criteria. Then 2 sites closer to South Mill Creek, but still within the city limits, is the Mill Creek Commons and the Mill Creek Self-Storage. And only 1 site that's outside the city limits, but still within the urban growth area, is the Cadman property. For different reasons, based on viability of the sites, they kind of meet the criteria almost, but not 100%. We had to eliminate topsoils, self-storage, and the Cadman sites. So DRCC and the Mill Creek Commons were the 2 top-ranked sites out of the shortlist or everything that we looked at. We also understand, based on early conversation, that DRCC is being looked at by the Civic Campus Redevelopment Study. So we understand that, but it's also a site that meets the Public Works criteria. We initiated preliminary outreach through our real estate consultant to the Mill Creek Commons owner as part of this process, a very, very early due diligence, and they have expressed a willingness to receiving an offer as of now. So we dug a little bit deeper into the top ranked sites. We looked at two things, developable area. So what we mean by that is, apart from usable, you have to develop the area as well, right? So we categorize that into three groups. If you followed along the graphic, just to keep it easy there, the green area is what we're calling developable. So you can develop, it's not blank slate, it's not dirt. You got to remove some trees, you got to excavate some, you got to grade that. So there is some cost associated with that, but it's not a bigger expense. The portions in yellow is what we're calling developable with added cost and complexity. So what that means is that it requires grading or retaining a wall to account for a medium slope or a steep slope that's on the site or at that portion, or to mitigate a lower quality wetlands, or you have to build in the wetland buffer zone where it's permitted. So added cost and complexity, but you can develop those portions. And anything that's in white in that particular graphic is undevelopable. So that's code required setback, or it's a wetland, or it's a wetland buffer where you cannot develop at all. On the next slide, you'll see a couple of designs. We don't call it design. You may call it 0% design, but it's really like a planning level test fits. So we estimated, X building is going to be required and, how much site is going to be required, right? But as part of this test fit, we want to make sure that matches with the site that you have. So we want to test ourselves there and make sure it fits on these two sites. So just a reminder, these aren't designs, but what you have on your screen is the DRCC site. Dobson, Remillard, Cook, and Church. Cook being the parcel on the left of your screen. And so as you can see, what we have done is essentially used up most of the green areas, so the portion which you can develop with a slightly lower cost, if you can call that. We had to encroach in some of the yellow portions where you can develop with some added cost and complexity. But this is one vision of what your 2045 public works could potentially look like on this site. This slide, kind of the same. This is the Mill Creek Commons site. So you can see the Bottle Everett Highway in the middle and the Seattle Hill Road that's kind of near the bus stop that you have. And everything kind of fits within that green area. So if you look at 2045, this site works for you. But if you think about potential annexation, you have to get into those yellow areas where you have to develop with added cost and complexity. So in summary, both sites meet your 3-acre minimum need. Commons obviously requires an acquisition, not an annexation. If the city pursues annexation, you need 5 acres. So DRCC, as you saw, and go back to the graphic, is large enough to support any annexation scenario and more. But it won't be available pending, the outcome of the Civic Campus Redevelopment Study. Mill Creek Commons has a locational advantage, and I can go back to show you that. It's kind of in the center of Mill Creek urban growth area, right? So it's perfect for public works where you want to be centralized. It's rarely that a public works operation yard is central, but Keegan will tell you, for example, that central is best for public works because you have to go out to all of the service area. So it has a locational advantage there. But developing more than 3.4 acres there would get into the yellow zone, which is added cost and complexity involved. So final slide here, it's a city decision point, and I'd invite city staff, including Dan or Mike, to join me here to authorize city staff to pursue a potential annexation of Mill Creek Commons site and to complete further due diligence and appraisal of the site. We also wanted to provide a suggestion here for the city. Please consider evaluating public works as part of the Civic Campus redevelopment study if the common sign is found to be infeasible or cost prohibitive for the city. Questions on that?
Right.
Yes, just one thing before we go on to your questions. We are asking for council's feeling
Direction.
direction on this as far as which way you would like to go. We already, in our budget for the project, we only have feasibility on one site. So if you would like us to pursue both and continue considering them, that's something we can definitely do, but it'll require a contract amendment with makers in order to pursue it. So we're just asking, what are your guys' feelings? What do you guys think on this?
So that bullet point assumes consecutive feasibilities, not concurrent feasibilities, correct?
That is what it is, and we are recommending going forward with the Mill Creek Commons, but that is pending council's okay.
But we could then consider looking back at DRCC if for some reason in your feasibility,
Yes,
you find a deal breaker.
yes.
Okay. Questions, thoughts? Councilmember Allison?
Yeah, could you just explain why the topsoil site is not viable? One more time.
It's short answer, it's not big enough to support the 3 acres. Also, they were from earlier conversations, we heard it's a potentially willing to sell, but the site is really not big enough to support the public works operations. Operationally, it's also far away, so it hurts your operations. The further you go away, that's not central.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Stickler?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of questions in my head right now. It's, I'm trying to think about the best way. So what I'm hearing you say is we don't have the budget to pursue multiple evaluations. We need to pick one.
So currently, we only have scoped for a single feasibility study or due diligence and appraisal for a single site. We could, if you guys just want to go with DRCC, that is fine. We can go ahead and go on that site. Mill Creek Commons is an excellent alternative that also would preserve DRCC based on the previous conversations that council has had over the last couple months. So that's what's currently in the contract. We could amend the contract, amend the budget to allow for additional due diligence on multiple sites.
Well, wouldn't we have to amend 2 contracts? Because we gave direction 6 weeks ago to pursue option 1 to do a civic campus on this site, and this was not part of option 1.
Correct.
It
This
was
was not part of the direction that was given for DRCC. No.
Correct.
All right. So I guess where my head's at right now is that number one, what we just said, we're pursuing DRCC for the civic campus, which would not work with this large warehouse. I mean, just by what you showed
It's to
here.
really limit what we have left.
Yeah, it's very limited land left. So, I mean, it would be difficult, just seeing how big that.
And also note that this is for a no annexation scenario.
Yeah.
If we annex, additional space would be required.
Well, and then here, my other question, the Mill Creek Commons land is land that we don't own. So, you know, why do I want to invest money in analyzing that at a time when I don't know if I could even afford it? So that's a question, doesn't seem to be kind of like putting the cart before the horse type of thing. And third, with annexation being considered and being presented here in probably the next 30 to 40 days, do we want to look at this might prove to be a DRCC maybe just as inappropriate and non-centralized as, say, a topsoil, civic topsoil is. Civic topsoil would be could be more centrally located and prove to be a better site. So I'm kind of wondering if is it better to get some of these other questions answered before we move down this road? Questions like annexation, before you talk about investing in a site like this.
The thing to note is that as we move forward with both the DRCC Civic Campus and the South Town Center, you are effectively eliminating all of our current public works facilities. So we need to have somewhere else for Public Works to go. Because currently Public Works is split between City Hall, which is in the Southtown Center, and on Remillard. So
Right, currently it's on Remlar because you've just got the bins up there
Right.
with the material. You don't have a big warehouse and everything else on it.
So, Councilmember Seckley, what I'm saying is that you need to include this as part of your thought process. This is something that needs to be included with these items. This is a vital city service that currently we're evicting.
Let's be clear, there's no plan to, we might have discussions on the annexation study, but there's no plans to make a decision on annexation in 45 days.
No, we're just gonna get it in the next 30 to 40
We're gonna
days.
get
So,
that analysis, yes.
yeah, we're gonna get the analysis. So I'm just wondering if now is the time to be making decisions about where we want to develop this large warehouse, office, cruise shop, everything. I mean, I'm not saying you don't need it. Don't get me wrong there, but with some of the other decisions that's coming down the pike here, pursuing DRCC, I said Mill Creek Commons, geez, is that a good one to pursue because we don't know the cost of the land? 2, DRCC, should we pursue that? Well, gosh, we don't know if that's going to interfere with the civic center and performance space and other things we've been talking about for a number of years. Could we could we consider, we thought about Remlar because that's where your material is currently being deposited. That fits fine, but it does not take into account a huge warehouse like this and stuff that you're
Correct.
going to need for future over the next 20 years.
So one thing I would say is that the feasibility study for the Commons site, that would give you the answers.
How long will that take? Are we talking 60 to 90 days? Are we talking 90 to 120 days?
And what kind of cost are we talking?
Well, we've already
It's already
budgeted for the
included in the
cost for the.
Well, but then we
feasibility.
lose the Rimlar opportunity.
It's still there.
Is it?
I think the question's still valid though. I mean, what's the cost?
No, what's the time?
Yes, cost in mind.
It's not in the kind of the scope of like, due diligence and research additional, so.
Okay. It'll take a few months to do the due diligence and research, but it's not going to be a huge amount of time. It's still within the timeline of the other items that are moving right now.
Yeah, because the interesting thing about this site is, when we talk about annexation, I mean, we're thinking about making a decision on what to acquire for something you guys may or may not pursue anytime in the
Right.
next couple of years.
Right.
And so if you if we said that we wanted to focus on DRCC and then we ever annex, we've taken away a big opportunity on that site. And the flip side here is we have the opposite risk, although we do have the Cook property. I mean, did we talk about this before, whether if we had it down there and in the future you needed a bigger site, could you put the materials up on a Cook property site?
In theory, you can split the location. It's just not, it's not efficient.
Oh, I understand. I'm just,
It's not
but
ideal.
there's no ideal site for this facility is the challenge is there's an ideal site, but it would rule out something we've already decided isn't what we want to have on that site. It's not the option within option 1 that we voted to pursue.
Dan, go back to the shortlisted slide to point out that that outer boundary is the full UGA. And so if you talk about locations, the Mill Creek Commons is on that very south end of the current city limits, but it is a good location because it's right on the highway. The DRCC, whether you're in the city or in the UGA, is at the top edge. It's still close to a highway. The question earlier about Pacific topsoils was that is always going to be kind of in that corner and it's a little bit small. Just want to point out that remember the city limits is a smaller piece, but we did have them consider that entire UGA. So it's central. That's the
If you go back to your slide about the needs, when you say what would be the needs for annexation, is that assuming that we annex the entire Muga?
Is it this one?
Yes.
So,
100% annexation.
Okay, so I would bet a fair amount of money that that's not going to be an option you guys are going to choose to pursue. So if
Why do you say that?
the whole Muga,
Pardon me?
turning Mill Creek into 75,000 resident city, I think it's unlikely, but maybe you guys will go there, but there's an in-between. I mean, the common site is 4 acres. So it's about an acre less than you need for the whole shebang if we annex the entire Muga, but it'd be enough for something, an expansion smaller than that if you decided to go west. Only in, or no,
Yeah.
if you decided to do annex
Especially southeast. yeah.
something different than the whole Muga.
If we decide to go southeast, that's not going to be as centrally located.
That's not my point. It's not the location. I'm just focusing on the size.
Yeah.
That number, they're assumed the maximum annexation. And maybe others will disagree. I just think that's unlikely that if we would annex that entire Muga. What-
To be clear, the Mill Creek Commons site has 6 acres developed.
Oh, I thought I saw a slide that said 4.
No, if you go to the
It
next
says here
one.
3.4.
Yeah, so this one, it's total developable is 6.
What,
Go back to the yellow and green one you're showing. So it's 3.4 is easy developable.
Wait,
And then 2.6 is a little harder.
I thought we've been talking about, we need a site currently that's 3 acres. If we annex, we need 5.
That's what I heard.
So if we have 6 at Commons, what's the problem?
It's not a problem.
Well, just additional cost of the yellow area.
No, but oh, that's what you're saying, is there's the land there, it's just more expensive.
But we don't know. We don't know what the cost is.
Right.
That's unknown.
Is that just because of slopes there, or is we don't know yet?
Primarily because of slopes, and that's something that can be mitigated through construction methods.
Okay, Councilmember Duque?
Oh, it was in reference to Pacific topsoils as a reminder. That is, I mean, behind it is the Penny Creek Natural Area that we had a wonderful presentation about. But additionally, there is homes that are now on that side. And then, of course, all the homes on the other side of 35th. So it is one of the considerations when we were looking at residential, I'm sure is probably why that one wasn't considered.
Stephanie, if you have your hand up, let me get to Sean and then I'll get to you.
Okay.
Councilmember Paddock?
I actually had a question for Director Ryan. Yeah, sorry to scare you over there. But if we go to that map that kind of shows the Muga, I just wonder from a city planning perspective, is this the right place to have on a busy street like that? Is this the right place to have a public works yard?
The Mill Creek Commons
Yeah.
site. I would say that the best place to place your public works facilities is one where the public works crews facilities will have the greatest ease of accessing and being able to transport materials to effectively maintain standards. So in regards to the best location, I would say that was, of all the spots considered, it's probably most ideal in terms of ease of access.
And I think that's a really fair way of describing it, of all the places possible, right? We can't judge this based on perfection, but what's possible and what we have.
That would be
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah. Is there, sorry, just one other question while I've got the mic. Is there I guess a rear access to this that wouldn't take someone out to Bothell Everett Highway? Or is that all wetlands and no bueno? We can't build a bridge?
It's all wetlands beyond
Yeah,
that.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Though, if you want to build a bridge that connects Seattle Hill Road to 9th, come talk.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I think for me, I had a couple of things, because one, I was going to point out when you guys were talking about the available land, that if we only need 3 now, but the possibility of going to 6 is there, but it's difficult, we're only needing 3 right now. But then, so that kind of answers your question about, are we gonna, if we don't annex in everything, but if we did 20 years down the road, then they could do what they need to do to expand that space, I guess is my thoughts. And if we have to decide between looking at one space, I would prefer to look at the commons space, because I do not want to use up our space over at DRCC. And I do think that land is not being used for anything else, is hard to develop, is probably going to be hard for anyone else to take it. It would have been bought already. So I think that makes the most sense to look into to that space if that's, we can only choose one to look at. So I go with the, whatever it's called, commons or whatever.
I'd personally, I agree. I'd like to rule out commons before I switch ships and go to DRCC. So I'm in favor of looking at them consecutively, doing the due diligence in the next few months on the commons property. And if a deal breaker comes up with the feasibility, then we can decide to shift and readjust what we're doing with DRCC. Councilmember Ellison?
And if we pivot and do the due diligence on this parcel, it's already covered in the cost we associated with this project to begin with, right? Okay, so we're not having to add any expense to the current.
Not due diligence. So the next step,
Study.
so the next step for due diligence would be appraisal and also initiating deeper conversations and statement of intent that the city would, proceed with an acquisition. So that's not part of this study. So this was all about making sure that how much space you would need and does it fit on this site. So that's where this particular study stops. So additional due diligence would be more of a real estate conversation. So our real estate consultant, advised us up to this point. So additional work would be, additional work for the consultant there.
So there is additional cost.
There is.
No, I
So
think
this is the next step, like appraisal essentially.
I think the question though, if I understood what you're asking is, we could get into the commons, say we're 10% through the feasibility, and we find there's something that kills that site. We still have 90% of our funds that we'd allocated for that feasibility that could be transferred. So we don't know, it depends on when during that feasibility we rule out that site to know how much money, additional money we'd need. If we shifted to do another feasibility on the DRCC site.
How do they determine what is the 10% that they want to focus on?
I don't know what they're gonna look, they're probably gonna look at soils, they're gonna look at slopes, they're gonna look at, I don't doubt there's anything on title, but you're gonna do a phase one, I assume, or if not a phase two?
Hopefully just a phase one. Environmental site assessment, which would look at pollutants on the site or anything like that, anything that we would be required to clean up. It would basically would be looking for anything that would make the site extremely expensive.
So maybe what we could do, like the mayor's suggesting, is to say, sure, we'd like you to pursue Mill Creek Commons, but we don't want to authorize any additional expenses at this point.
To do a second feasibility.
Right. Yeah, we're not authorizing any additional money.
So to pursue the commons, we can go ahead and get a consultant for that, because that is not part of Maker's scope.
That's additional money.
So it would be some additional funds, but I mean, it's something that is a priority from what I've been hearing.
Councilmember Duque has a question. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It would be the next step in the process essentially. So it's, don't consider that as a second feasibility, it's the next step as part of this. So if this is the site that's, one of the top ranked, then the next step would be to look at what Dan was saying, like soils, geotech, right, and then appraisal. So those will all come out. Typically those take, and almost 6 months for commercial transactions, so.
Councilmember Duque.
I think I'm still a step behind. I wanted to acknowledge that. So the scope of work that you were talking about in terms of like next steps, right? And how we wouldn't be able to look at both because we didn't have the allocation of funds to look at both as this next step. You are saying we have allocated enough for that, for one.
I may have misspoken. I misunderstood the current contract that we have with Makers. So I probably misspoke there, and I apologize for that.
It's okay.
I believe that there will need to be an additional allocation or other items, but I will need to take a look at our budgets first for that.
So as of right now, what we're thinking is that any next step does need an allocation of money. And so we would need to know the cost of that. And so potentially we could find out what the cost is of 1 and 2.
Potentially, if you would like. The question is.
Just to know the numbers.
Right. The question is, are you guys interested in also knowing
1
the
and 2.
feasibility of DRCC?
Right.
Given the directions that we have received from council.
Correct. Yeah, that part I understand that's the discussion we're having here, but I just wanted to confirm.
Yes.
The idea I had in my head is, we really should only choose one of these 2 locations because that's already allocated. That's not the case. It's actually, we need to allocate to look at one for either, or we should be allocating, we'll potentially need to allocate for both, or whatever it was. If we had come back and said, actually, we want you to look at 3, then it's still allocating each one.
Correct. Also, what the mayor previously said is that as you go forward on one of them,
Right.
something may come up that says, this is not the right site.
Right.
This is not going to work for us. This is not where we want to go forward. And when that happens, we can go ahead and take those funds and apply it to the second site. So doing this sequentially kind of makes sense because it could be a cost savings.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense for me. And so then, just for my fellow council members, since the discussion, I just wanted to flag, this all makes sense. That seems like there seems to be a consensus among all of you, maybe not, as I get it. But I just wanted to flag, for me, I would like us, I voted to, I want to acknowledge that I know we have to move on from our votes, but I didn't want that one option 1 for that DRCC, because it was the multi-purpose and the moving everything. I wanted 2, which I just double checked, and that one did include still keeping, I like the idea of having all of our services together as a team, part of team building, just making sure all communications are there, even just having City Hall North and City Hall South. In all of the presentations, they talk about how there's a separation there. So now we're talking about a whole nother facility somewhere else. There's positives to that too, because then we have more eyes around the city. I can see both ways, but I just wanted to confirm with you guys. I am not interested. I would like us to do DRCC first. As that, which I think is contrary to what Mayor Pro Tem Vignal said, but just wanting to share my opinion. Happy with whatever the majority of council chooses.
Councilmember Steckler.
I just keep going back to, I have questions about the commons, questions about, you mentioned trying to get out of that area on Bothell Everett Highway, which can be quite busy with big trucks and plows and all kinds of equipment. And I'm thinking, is that ideal? I don't know. I'm not an expert, so I don't know.
So there could be co-location benefits. Let me, if you don't mind, I would like to answer that question. There could be co-location benefits if we go on that location, because there have been complaints regarding the intersection of Bothell Everett Highway and Seattle Hill Road. This could be an opportunity to put a signal there. And we could work with the state and the county to put a signal in that location.
Or a roundabout.
Potentially.
Yeah, and again, why am I hesitant? I'm hesitant because, I want to be a good steward of taxpayer money.
John, can you clarify, you're hesitant for what?
I'm hesitant about moving ahead on Mill Creek Commons because I still have questions about it, that I would hate to spend the money to analyze the topography and make sure if it fits the structure that ultimately we want to build for the next 10, 20 years, and then find out, yeah, we could do it. It works. Oh gosh, no, we can't because we can't afford the property, or we can't get trucks in and out of there, or some other factor. I wouldn't want to have spent this money unless I knew it was a viable opportunity. And I guess I keep wondering if we've talked about this for years. Are there other options that is land that we own that, given our growth structure, I mean, annexation is an honest discussion that we have to have, which it's something that it's not a want to have. We have some issues. So annexation is a decision that we've got to make. And are we rushing this along when in reality, for the next 10 or 20 years, that annexation discussion could have a much bigger impact on where you want this thing and where we want our civic center, or where, could this become, could City Hall North become your facility? And because the civic center, a lot of people are going to move out of there and move up to the civic center. So it won't be housing a lot of its current usage except for rental tenants. So I guess I'm wondering about what's the best, the smartest move for our city and for the taxpayer money that we're spending for consultants to do an analysis on a topography.
As your engineer, it is my recommendation for these kind of things that you do these studies. These studies will help answer a lot of the questions that you have. Is the access right? Can they get in and out well? That's one of the study items we can do. So a lot of these questions that you have, the studies will answer them. And so if we go down this road, the studies may be $100,000 total. That's pretty safe money. So you don't get into a place that's not right for the city.
I guess that would depend on what you were using the money for. If you're talking about analyzing the topography to build our facility versus the other questions I mentioned, like what kind of cost we're gonna have to add to acquire the land. I don't want to talk about that, but I don't know what it is. Also, could we move trucks in and out of there? Is that just, that's not gonna happen.
And all of those, like the cost to acquire the land, all those kind of things, those will come up in these studies.
In addition to these studies, okay?
No, they'll come up as part of
As part of these studies, but then in addition to these, we're also gonna analyze the
Well,
topography.
and the direction we could give if we wanted to would be, we would give authorization to proceed, but we want the property tied up first, so we know that
Yeah.
we have it under control before we start spending feasibility dollars. Director Todd has been itching to say something.
Yeah, I was just gonna remind ourselves, so we've got to a point where we said we looked at everything that was 2 acres or more, and these are the only 2 places that came out available to us. We could go back and start over again, but that I'm not recommending that. I think we're down to DRCC, and the problem is that I think like Councilmember Duque says, it'd be great to have everybody together in one place. If we could ideally say, here's a 40-acre parcel and we could build a beautiful campus with all kinds of facilities for the public and for Public Works, we're all one big happy team, that'd be great, but that doesn't exist anymore. Do you want to lock up part of DRCC with this, with annexation in or out? Is it 3 acres or 5 acres? That may be a complexity. And so I think staff is suggesting Mill Creek Commons doesn't have that complexity. It has some unknowns that we don't know. And that's what the due diligence would be, to see if the soils are suitable, make sure there's not an environmental cleanup issue, make sure the buffers for the streams are what we think they are. And yeah, we're gonna have to deal with the traffic. Yeah, we're gonna have to deal with getting utilities there, but that's part of that cost, but it does take it out of the mix of trying to be part of the DRCC discussion. I will say from my own history, we were within pretty close. I will say we had an appraisal done on the Silver Lake Water District property. We're close to buying that, but we decided not to, and now it's not available because they decided they really want to keep it. So that went away. So we're at a point where there's not other properties available unless you want to buy an old shopping center and tear it down. That's about what we're up against. So this is, we're kind of at a juncture where I'd love to see us move forward with something instead of saying, let's wait.
Councilmember Ellison?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it's real typical that a public works yard is not central to like a city hall. It's in a lot of cities. It's usually off the beaten path, away from the city hall. So this arrangement doesn't really worry me to analyze this piece of property for that purpose.
Yeah, I still favor the consecutive because I think this site, the common site, has enough room for the current, a potential smaller annexation or the full annexation. We're just not gonna be able to articulate, and we won't know before we annex what the cost would be to develop that site fully if we did our whole MUGA. I would just hate to see the city in a situation where we went down this path and then and wanted to look at DRCC, and then we have a master plan that says, gosh, I wish we'd done that at that site instead of putting a public works yard there. So if we're talking a few months, I'd say let's proceed with the due diligence on this property, rule it out, and then in a few months, we'll have the ability to say, either let's proceed with that or let's rethink DRCC and figure out how to incorporate it there.
If I could offer a compromise, I liked your suggestion of tying the land up
Yeah.
to determine if it's, that would at least tell us, is this even an option for us to take this piece of
Yeah.
property? And then do the analysis on its, feasibility. So first tie it up. Let's find out what we're getting into. Is that something that we can live with? If we can, then yes, let's do the feasibility. So that's where I would support that.
Do them consecutively with the direction that the feasibility starts once we get the contract under contract.
Right. Then I know we're not wasting money. We're spending money we know we would want to acquire this. If the
Can you
feasibility
take
worked
down
out.
the share screen so I can see Stephanie if she has her hand up?
She does.
Oh, she does have her hand up.
Yeah, she does.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I have a question now after what Melissa brought up, because I was understanding that we already had in our budget for one feasibility, and that's why we had to pick one. So then my question is, where's the money coming for this feasibility from, for the feasibility study? Also, I'm listening to Councilmember Steckler, and I think we really, to me, we have two choices here, because we either say we already own the land at DRCC, so we know that won't cost extra money, and we need to just look at putting it there, and then whatever we're going to be able to build extra is going to be with whatever space is left, or we look the other space and leave the DRCC open. I mean, to me, that's what our options are.
Mayor Pro Tem, to answer your first question, I would anticipate the money would be coming out of the Facilities Capital Fund, which I believe we currently have space in, but I would need to double check the current funding in that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure where we're at. Are we in line with the idea of giving direction to see if we can get the property tied up, and if we can, then proceed with the feasibility and then revisit DRCC if during the feasibility there's some deal breaker cost or what have you?
I could go behind that, especially knowing that it would come out of the capital fund for facilities. That makes a difference.
Stephanie, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
I think that's about as close to consensus as you can have. Clear?
Perfectly, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Good discussion.
Thank you.
At least you're moving ahead. At least it's not a no.
Okay, that brings us to item M, proposed mid-biennium capital improvement updates. Pardon me.
All right. Hello again, running mayor and the rest of the council. I'm here to bring up our mid-biennium capital improvement plan update. We do this in line with the mid-biennium budget updates so that everything's in alignment. So the purpose of this is to introduce the proposed changes based on recent studies that we've completed and revised cost information. So the current CIP status. So it was adopted back in 2024 as part of the biennium budget process. First amendment was in March 25th, 2025 to add in the Highway 96 emergency pipe replacement project. It was amended again in May 13th for the Safe Streets for All grant application preparation. The third amendment was in July for the Surface Water Fund and revised Surface Water Fund for the Catch Basin Repair Project. That one also did this work for the Surface Water Fund. So we've already revised the projects and that has already been passed. The fourth amendment will come with the mid-by update, which the first hearing is today. So we have new information beyond what we had when we did our original CIP. Since then, we have completed several projects. We have revised construction costs, which allowed us to update our estimates for our projects. We have also gotten bids for design on projects, which allowed us to more accurately represent what the going rates are for both design and construction in the area. That's the revised potential budgets. We've updated the timelines of projects to reflect availability, proper design schedules, those kinds of items. We've also added new projects. These are ones that have come to the surface as life happens. So there are items that citizens have brought up, items that we've seen from maintenance that have become large enough that we've needed to capitalize them. And we've also updated it based on the new priorities, both from council and from management, about what we need to be addressing as part of our capital program. So I would like just to have, just as a reminder, the capital improvement plan is a budgeting tool. This isn't an actual work plan for the engineering division or the capital projects. It provides a scheduling of when the funding will be needed and is a living document that's going to reflect the realities of as we design these items. So if a project comes up that there's an issue where, hey, we didn't know that there was a sewer here, and we're gonna hit it, we have to revise the design, then we can make it so that the schedule slips. Another example is with the Sweetwater Ranch project, where we had to go and get Corps of Engineer approval to build within the wetland. And that took significantly longer than we were expecting. So we missed the construction window this year and had to push it to next. So this is nothing in this is set in stone. We're going to be revising this as we go. And it is not going to be, it gives you an idea of what's going to happen, not exactly what is or is not going to happen. So the proposed updates. As we brought to you previously on projects, one of the biggest things we're going to implement is phase gates. So these are times when we check in with council and get your guys' input, get your authorization to move forward, whether that's a full resolution or a head nod. It's times for you guys to say go, no go on a project. So one of the biggest phase gates we're going to implement is the concept to design phase gate. This will happen at around either the conceptual stage to 30% on a project. And that allows us to pause, get final agreement from council that that is what you guys want to see as part of this project, or that's going to be as part of the city, and then go find funding for it. So that allows us to be in a better place to get grants, to get other funding sources so that we can say, we have 30% plans ready. We know how much it's going to cost. We're ready to go. Give us the money and we'll get it done. So that way it will give us more flexibility, and also we'll start building a stable of projects that we can work with the legislative committee to get additional funding for. And that way we have things ready to go. As I mentioned before, surface water has already been revised. Those revisions were approved July 22nd, and they're already implemented in our published capital improvement plan. So as we go through these, remember, red is a new project. It was not previously in the CIP. It has been added. Blue is a revised budget. We're keeping the same schedule, but we revised the budget to reflect reality, or better estimates that we have now. And then green is delayed. That means the project has been pushed out for either budgetary reasons or workload reasons, or the ability, or other projects arose to the surface and we needed to delay it. So on transportation, South Town Center Master Transportation Upgrade, that one has had its cost revised and its schedule adjusted to match the surface water revisions that were approved previously to open up a little bit of budget in that. Silvercrest Drive and Trillium have had their budgets updated to reflect the bids we were getting on the actual design. Those ones we both implemented phase gates at 30% so that we can go ahead and come back to council to ensure that we have the funding secured for that. But the costs that are in here are more in line with what we are expecting to spend on those projects. Just so you know, these costs include any grants or other funding sources that we are anticipating to make the project go forward. This is not all city paid. So these costs that are in here is the total cost of the project. It is not, so that includes both our capital fund and the grants and other allocations. Old Seattle Hill Road and Dumas were both delayed to line up better with other projects and provide additional space. Mill Creek Boulevard corridor study and the Seattle Hill Road corridor study, both of those were increased in cost to reflect the cost we were getting actually out of the Safe Streets for All program for corridor studies. The sidewalk maintenance program has been added to address panel shaving throughout the city. So that is helping to fix our panels to make it a safer place for people to move around. The North Creek Trail pavement rehabilitation and the Brighton and Cogier Trail pavement rehabilitations. We got $100,000 from the county for North Creek Trail. We are doing 500 feet of North Creek Trail with that $100,000. So based on that, to address the remainder of it, it will be about another $1 million to fix all of North Creek Trail with the tripping hazards, the routes, those kind of things. And then The same thing with Brighton and Cogier. Those trails are both owned by the city and they both have route upheaval on them that needs to be addressed. So those are items that need to be fixed as well. Mill Creek Elementary School crosswalk improvements, that's been delayed till next year, but we are already working on it to figure out how we're going to make that crosswalk and RFB better.
Is that changing the location or keeping it at the same location?
We actually are looking at keeping the one at the same location, upgrading its materials and adding one at the school itself. And then the citywide overlay program, that was revised to better reflect the amount that we're actually going to be doing. When we were setting up the 2026 program, we found that it was actually a pretty big chunk that we were doing. And it would be more efficient for us to reduce the overall amount that we did per year to better spread it throughout the city. So that actually is a reduction in the overall cost for that program. Facilities, the citywide facilities master plan, that got pushed to, that got increased cost and it'll begin next year. So that's more recognizing how much it'll actually cost to do that work based on our recent studies that we've been doing for the master plans throughout the city. Parks, Veterans Monument Library Park, that's gotten revised to the current dates. It was supposed to be under construction this year, but based on the some of the studies, we've had to push that out. We'll be coming back to you guys soon with the contract award for the design of that. So just letting you know. Citywide Parks and Trails ADA Transition Plan update. That's out there in the future, out there in 2027. We pushed it out to the next biennium. That one is looking at all of our parks and trails to see, make sure that we are complying with ADA laws and ADA rules. Citywide Parks and Open Space program, that has been revised in date to match planning's work schedule because we will be working with planning on that. The Penny Creek Natural Area Master Plan and phased implementation has been revised in dates to begin in next year. We will be looking more at the costs of that as that comes closer after we possibly take possession of Penny Creek Natural Area. And then I also included a parks project placeholder in 2029 to 2030 to make sure that we were including it as a planning item. We don't know what's going to happen there, but we want to make sure that we are properly budgeting for that in our 6-year estimate. Also, as part of this, I took projects out and basically called them non-program projects. So these are ones that are no longer on our schedule, no longer going to be counted in our budget, but we already have them scoped. And so we can just bring them back if the need be. So these are a couple of the placeholders. The 133rd Street right-of-way extension improvements and the Mill Creek City Hall North renovation project. All of those have been switched to non-programmed. So for the transportation section, we revised the budgets as the per year, as you can see. The biggest thing is that we dropped the overall 6-year estimate from 56 million to 44 million. For facilities, we dropped it from 15 million to 14.3 million. Parks dropped from 19.4 to 17.2. And then the overall total dropped from 119 million to 105 million. So there is a budget gap with this. Our total available resources for that 6-year timeframe is about 52 million. The total capital expenditures are about 105 million. So there is approximately a 50% budget gap. So that's why I brought up the phase gating, because we're not going to go to construction of these until we have the funding, whether that's from our resources or getting grants or getting other places. So while we are projecting that we need to have $105 million worth of work, we're going to make sure that we keep it within the budget that we have. And if we need more money, we're going to go get grants. So we're going to try to make sure that we are good stewards of the funding that we are given. So that we will be pausing projects, putting them in our back pockets, and looking to move forward with them when we actually have the funding.
Councilmember Allison has a question.
Hi, would you mind going back to the list of projects where they were green, red, and blue?
This one?
That one right there, yeah.
Yes.
So, the red ones that are
Mhm.
brand new, did those turn up from a study that was conducted?
Yes.
Okay, could you talk about that just briefly?
So the sidewalk maintenance program came from a current study where we're finding,
Would talk to that?
yes. we do.
So we've got a survey going on right now, that they're going around, you may have seen it started in the northeast corner of town, that's the little blue marks are going on and measuring the mismatch between concrete panels, a half inch, quarter inch, whatever. They gave us a quote for the first of 10 phases, it's $68,000. We have that many panels that they would shave off or grind down. And on top of that, they've also got panels that are beyond repair, either they're cracked, you wouldn't want to shave them, or they're too far heaved, and so then that would be something that Keegan would either self-perform through his crew, they've done quite a few of those, or we contract it out. So we simply took 68,000 times 10 and added a couple $100,000 because that's our best guess right now as to what we might be facing. We've got that survey is gonna get completed in the next month or so, probably, it's just as fast as they can get it done. We'll have a better number, but at this juncture, we thought we better put that in there, make people aware of.
Is that, that project that's underway right now, is it just the concrete sidewalks or is
Concrete
it
sidewalks.
also the trails?
It's concrete sidewalks. So then the trails, the next one there, so North Creek Trail, so what we're doing right now, the first piece we're working on, we're working with the landowners at LA Fitness, both the LA Fitness itself and the shopping center that's got the Azul in it right to the south, that's the same owner. We're working with them. The trees that we had them plant 20 years ago are heaving the sidewalk, heaving the trail. Our responsibility is the integrity of the trail. But before we do that, we're gonna have to take the trees out and get rid of the roots. So we're working with that owner to get permission to do that, have them replant the trees. But then Keegan and crew will tear out the roots and then we'll contract with somebody to pave it. And right now, we don't know how much it's gonna be. But as Dan says, it's a 500-foot section. We've got $100,000 from the county. So we're just taking a wild guess that it could be $1 million for that entire trail to be other root hazards.
Yeah, do we have to put trees back there? Is there some kind of bush or something that could be put in there instead?
That is a current discussion, be it by our design review board. When we first developed, we required them to put in trees and a bunch of shrubs, which now have turned into trees and a bunch of blackberry bushes and salal bushes and other scrubby stuff. And so the question is, do we have to go back and revise that landscaping plan? And that's a discussion we're gonna take up with the planning folks and the DRB and say, what do they have to do? It is a discussion we could have. Do we really want to put the trees back right now? That we've judged they have to put the trees back, probably not as many bushes.
Thank you. Yeah, it just
And
seems
that's-
like we'll be right back here in 20 years, so.
Yeah, exactly. And the last one is, we just found, so we knew all along that the North Creek Trail surface was our responsibility. It's in an easement. It's in the wetland buffer. The trail itself is ours. The fence, it's questionable. Depends on how you want to interpret things, but that's also a problem back there. But I was not aware, nobody was aware until we got to talking to MCCA recently. The Cozier property used to be Merrill Gardens. The same requirement is on the plat for that as well, on the binding site plan for that we somehow have the responsibility for that surface. And so we had no idea. There's some huge tripping hazards. We thought it was their problem. MCCA was pushing on them to deal with it. And it turns out when you dig really deep into it, it's the same thing. In our wisdom 20, 30 years ago, we said, you guys take care of the trail except for the trail surface is ours. So that's a new surprise. So that's a total guess there. The Brighton one, I will admit, I knew this and we forgot about it. It should have been a project. Same thing, Brighton, somehow the pond that's in Brighton was a wetland, expanded to be a surface water feature, and the trail that's on one side of it is in horrible shape. And it turns out same thing. The city, in all our wisdom 20-something years ago, said the city will take care of that surface. And it is a mess.
Thank you for the history lesson.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll say those last two are guesses.
Based on
Guesses.
what the amount that we're spending on the section of North Creek Trail that we're already doing.
Thank you. That's a good estimate.
If I may, Dan, I'll make a quick comment on that slide. You go back to that. You know, to give you, you kind of get sticker shock when you kind of look at these totals. And city engineer did talk to that these will be funded by grants to some extent. So to give you a sense of the grant coverage on some of these, on the first one, Southtown Center Master Transportation Upgrade, on that 9.7 million, about 7 million of that is potential grants. So it kind of gives you an idea that, and maybe in the future we'll kind of list what the actual CIP funding will be and maybe what the potential grant, that might be a little, maybe better for you to kind of see what we're looking at in terms of grants and the extent to which we may have gaps in funding at the end of the project. So, thanks.
Well, I think Director Todd would attest, it's not uncommon that we have a estimated project list that's far in excess of what our known resources are today. So that's not unusual. Councilmember Duque?
Actually, do you want to keep going and then I can afterwards?
Last parts I had
Yeah.
was just the overall, like actual budget sheets for this. Which you can peruse at your leisure when you can make it bigger, because I don't want, you probably shouldn't be squinting at this. And then I had questions. So.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. And I think, because this is the CIP budget, so this question may not be for this. And I just wanted to make sure, because there was a whole parks projects. What about the parks projects that, the Parks and Recreation Board recommended that we have, generally outlined from RPB funding?
Those are additional projects that are not part of the capital funding source. So we're working on them, but they're not part of this presentation.
Fantastic. Fantastic in that, of course, you guys have thought that through, but, how are they fitting in line with like your phasing of these projects? Of like CIP, like are they running?
They're running parallel with everything.
They're running parallel. Perfect,
I don't
because
think
it's a
those
different-
projects rose to the level of being a capital project that's covered by our CIP.
Most of them are small enough that they're mainly maintenance.
There was like
focused.
some of them were, I'm actually was trying to look it up to make sure I had like what the list was that we had like discussed, but some of they're definitely not capital improvement projects, but I was concerned about making sure they're still happening, or is it a discussion we need to have of saying like, those aren't happening because there's these other priorities?
I think that would be a discussion of, we will get the ones that we have started. And then the discussion would be whether or not the budget can support those in the upcoming months.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
If I may also, in probably mid-October, if not the first week, we'll bring forward an update on the RPB projects, as well as many that are on the maintenance operations list, and whether they actually, the engineer said, we have the budget for those as well. So on progress, and that'll align with what's going to be updated in our mid-buy budget as well. So thanks.
Thank you.
Before I get to John, can we have a motion to extend the regular meeting to 9:15, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes with enthusiasm. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Quick question on the Veterans Memorial and Park,
Yes.
Library Park. So you mentioned that these do not include the ARPA fund allocations, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so of that 625,000 for those two, I know that 250, that was a grant from the state. The balance of that, I thought, was ARPA funds for the library park.
There is Veterans Monument and Library Park. There is $250,000 from the state, $250,000 from the county. And
Right.
then there's the balance, I believe, is from capital or I don't think it's been decided yet. Those ones have not been spent yet, so we have not come back to you guys with a full budget.
Yeah, well, I know that the one from the state, which was just for the veterans, was 250. Okay. So, and then there's balance funds for parks. So I was just curious if that was ARPA fund allocation or CIP funds or.
This is just an estimate at this time. We may not end up using that other 125,000.
What happened to delay the Veterans Monument project? Because it was a pretty simple.
We got authorization to go out to do an RFQ from you in July.
There was no delay of the project.
Oh, I thought the project was to be completed
in 2026.
in 2026. Okay, I misunderstood. So that one was not delayed. That was
It
what
was
the
originally
original
supposed to be
plan.
under construction this year.
That's what, okay, that's what I thought. It was originally supposed to be under construction this year.
Yes, but it took us a while because of the weather this winter, to get an accurate wetland buffer delineation. It was actually a drier winter, which didn't reflect what the actual buffers were. So, then it took us a while to come to council, come to an agreement on what the actual scope we'd go out for an RFQ on, and then complete the RFQ. We actually just notified our selected landscape architect on this project. And so we'll be coming to council soon with the contract for that to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Stephanie, do you have any questions? I can't see you.
I do.
Okay, please go ahead.
On the 550 and the thousand, I think it was in the CIP that we have set aside for the Penny Creek Nature Preserve. What are we thinking is going to cost $550,000 for looking at that?
So that is intended for a master planning exercise for what it'll eventually look at and then beginning to address items. It's primarily for the planning exercise. The actual improvements to the site will most likely be more than that, especially given that the flooding at the entrance is caused by a culvert that is a fish passage blocking culvert.
Okay, so when you're talking about improvements, you're just thinking like the culvert that'll need to be fixed for the entrance and stuff like that, right? Because we're not sitting here thinking of like adding extra stuff in there because it's supposed to be a mediation area, right?
It's supposed to be a natural area. It was a mitigation area for
Yeah.
the farm, but it is also an opportunity to create a natural area as part of our park system. So we were anticipating having a landscape architect actually do a master plan for the park, so we could do a phased implementation of other possible things that could fit in with the natural character there. And we don't know what that is. Like, it's to find an idea of that stuff. Like, what are we gonna do with this now that we have it?
Okay. All right. Like, and obviously I'm only one of 7, but I think the idea of the people who are using that is that we wouldn't do too much to it because they like it just the way it is.
Let me chime in here. So connectivity, right? If you think right now, the farm was one of the target populations to use that. Right now, they need to walk all the way over to 35th and then down 35th and enter through the gate where the flooding, as we talked about. There's no other official entrance. You're trespassing if you access that site any other way, other than off of 138th. So the kind of thing a master plan would do is look at accessibility. Do we want to put in some sort of boardwalk or a path or a trailhead or whatever, those kinds of things? Then you'd phase the development of those over a period of time. You know,
Okay.
you wouldn't actually construct them with that money, but what Dan's talking about is having a reasonable amount of money to say, what do you want to do for the next 20 years with this? It's not to put in all kinds of structures necessarily, although you might say we should have a trailhead and a bathroom building. You might decide to do that, or you might decide not to, but that's the kind of planning that would come about.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. That's helpful.
Councilmember Paddock?
Just a quick follow-up to that, but we would, there would be a council vote on what we would even executing the master plan. Or, excuse me, executing a consultant to do the master plan. Okay, copy. Thank you.
And all these projects are already on the CIP. These are just adjustments to the cost estimates.
Yes, the only ones that were added are the sidewalks maintenance program, North Creek Trail and Brighton Cozier Trails.
Okay.
I'm
Other
gonna
questions?
belabor this a little bit. So Dan talked about this is a budgeting tool. If we don't have it in the CIP, we don't even have an opportunity to go and start something. So this is just the kind of the gate that allows us to even think about something, but we're always going to come to you, phase gate, and say, this is a concept. Do you want to move forward? And here's the steps whereby. But if you've seen this happen, like the SR 96 pipe failure, we couldn't start that project. Well, that was an emergency, wasn't it? It's a good example, but we can't start a project until we have some money in the budget. So this is a way to have least awareness from a budgeting standpoint, what you might have to do. And as the mayor pointed out, you often have underfunded, but this gives you an opportunity to have something you can point to on the CIP and say, go talk to a legislator, go talk to a grant committee that says, this is in our CIP. If that isn't there, you can't even get through the front door on the gate, on the grant committee. Thanks.
Exactly.
Any other questions? City manager?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a quick comment too, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time for this. We may be kind of putting the cart of kind of a front of the horse a little bit here. We will be bringing some information forward towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, about council's decision on actually to acquire the actual site. So I think that will also happen. So it may be presumptuous on our part to have this in here today. So I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that that has to happen first. So thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
for the update. That brings us to item N on our study sessions, Planned Area Developments Code Update. Mr. Ryan and Mr. Horn.
Good evening, council. I'll try to be brief as I introduce Justin. So the item that we're bringing before you today is a pretty technical adjustment to our existing language for planned residential developments. The intent here is flexibility to be able to make projects work. So without further ado, I'll punt to Justin. Thank you.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. So yeah, today I'll be going over update to our planned area development regulations. Pretty small amendment, but helpful. So first, what is a planned area development? So it is an alternative form of development regulation that allows a more flexible method of developing land. So it allows you to modify certain zoning requirements in the interest of furthering a list of positive goals. So for instance, imagine if you had a lot that had a nice big old growth tree on it, and to develop the lot, you have to knock the tree down to comply with all the regulations. But if you're able to, say, move the setbacks, you could build a structure and preserve that tree. So it's all about, modifying the rules we have due to unique characteristics of a certain site. And that regulation is found in Chapter 1612 of our code, and it goes over the applicability for planned area developments, minimum sizes, permitted zoning modifications, and permitted densities. So why do we need this update at all? One big reason is because our code was designed with expansion in mind. Mill Creek was a growing city, always pushing out more developments, greenfield development. But now we're mostly focused on infill development. So there's not a lot of expansion. We need to modify our code so we can accommodate redevelopment and infill. And for this planned area development, we want to reduce the minimum size requirements for pads, and we want to remove ambiguity for what permitted modifications are allowed. So here are the proposed amendments. In the applicability section, we just updated some language, no policy changes. In the minimum size section, we reduced the minimum size for planned residential developments from 2.5 to 1.5 acres to allow for greater flexibility for infill. And in the permitted modifications section, we clarify that the burden of proof to make these modifications is on the applicant. We clarified which permitted uses cannot be modified, and remove some outdated references to the streetscape element of the comprehensive plan. So next steps would be, well, first, Planning Commission already had a study session last week, and we have now this study session today. In October, Planning Commission will have a public hearing and forward recommendation to council, and then we're shooting for adoption November 4th. Any questions?
Councilmember Duque?
What was the discussion like at the Planning Commission meeting?
They didn't have a lot of comments. I guess they were curious about why we chose the 1.5 acres as the minimum size. And they are also curious about what sort of sites in the city this would be applicable to.
Do you have answers for either of those?
Yeah, the 1.5 acres is somewhat arbitrary. Some cities have no size requirement, others have larger size requirement. But we looked at sites in the city that just, for whatever reason, have not been able to develop, and we want something to happen to those sites. And with 1.5 acres was that threshold for most of those areas.
And the area location.
There's two in particular that we're concerned about. One is up at the farm, just to the east of the farm, next to the vintage housing. There's an undeveloped parcel, and we need that parcel developed so we can finish the spine road. And without a planned area development, it's probably not going to happen. The other is on Bothell Everett Highway, just south of 132nd, by the near the Lowe's and the
Les Schwab.
Les Schwab, yes. That site is probably also not developed unless we have these changes.
That's incredibly helpful. Thank you very much.
Other questions? Okay, we'll look forward to this coming back in the coming months.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, that brings us to our consent agenda tonight. Item O, approval of checks number 69302 through 69376 and ACH wire transfers in the amount of $468,638.55. The audit committee was Councilmember Steckler pinch hitting for Councilmember Cavallari and Councilmember Duque. Were there any exceptions?
No exceptions.
No exceptions.
And item P, payroll and benefit ACH payments in the amount of $388,991.21. Any exceptions?
No exceptions.
No exceptions.
Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Nope.
That's where someone says so moved.
So moved.
So
Yeah.
moved.
Is there, I'll take that as a motion in a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 6-0. City, staff reports, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The first report is to ask council if we could approve the October 21st special meeting because there is a public hearing on the 21st. We're going to need more, I think 7 to 10 days to get that, to notice that. So the 7th is cutting it close, and we don't have a council meeting, I think, on this. I think there's a 5th Tuesday of this month, so we could wait till the 7th. Or I'm recommending that we just approve that today if council doesn't mind doing that.
I would say, make a motion to approve a special council meeting on October 21st.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 We have 4 votes and Stephanie, did you,
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself.
did you cast a vote for?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the motion passes 5-0. Councilmember Paddock had stepped out for the moment, so he did not vote on that motion. Other reports?
Thank you, Mayor. We have 2 more reports. On September 9th, when Jake Amadon and several of his neighbors provided public comment to council regarding their ongoing negative experiences with their neighbor at 13701 30th Drive, Mill Creek. They requested that we provide a report to them, and I think this is a good report for council as well. So I'll update on 3 different items, and I'll just give kind of one comment at the end. On September 16th, since that date, I got to mention first is that we did have 2 meetings internally. 2 meetings, one Chief White with the neighbors, and also Director Ryan and myself with the neighbors as well. So, and those are very productive meetings where the neighbors had the opportunity to ask questions, and we were able to answer all their questions as it relates to both enforcement and code. So the update is the first item, September 16th. The second of 2 30-day regulatory orders were issued by Snohomish County Department. That second one did expire. I'm not gonna speak to the first one, but I don't know the exact details of it. But the second one did expire on the 16th. That homeowner did fail to comply with the order, which did require corrective action to bring that septic tank back into compliance. As of to this morning, early afternoon today, I'm not sure to what extent I could speak to the details of this, but the homeowner was arrested and is currently waiting arraignment in the Snohomish County Jail. The third update related to this is regarding to code compliance and kind of what our next steps are. As we always do, the standard practice of as we are informed by residents, we always address potential code noncompliance issues. As in this case, we will continue researching the issues that those neighbors brought up with the city of Mill Creek. Director Ryan and myself are going over the concerns and what steps we need to take in the future to address these in the near future. This includes considering the failure to comply with the Snohomish County septic tank issue and to determine how we will move forward addressing this complaint. So we have some ideas on how we can do that. The mayor asked us to put some information from the MRSC in front of all of you on the dais regarding abating different types of nuisances. They will give you a lot of examples, which includes also property and so forth. So we will continue to possibly consider policies moving forward based on council's direction. And I'll let the mayor fill in any gaps there when he reports, gives his reports, anything he wants to add.
Why don't I just do it, if you're wrapping up on that topic, why don't I just do it now? while we're-
Yes, thanks.
So just a couple things. I want to thank Councilmember Mead. He was very responsive. I texted him during the meeting. I think I mentioned that then. Talked with him the next morning. He got in touch with the health department and got quick updates as to what was going on and where they're at with their enforcement process. They had a compliance order out to the property owner that expired on the 16th. They went out and inspected the property, determined that they're still non-compliant, so it's being referred to the PA's office. So we don't have jurisdiction over the septic system. The county does, but they are going through their process. As Martin said, I heard some people mentioning during comments, public nuisance, eminent domain. That's why we put that information together. One thing that jumped out at me that I discovered we really don't have in our code but we do have some constitutional authority to abate public nuisances, but many cities have statutory or ordinances that deal with public nuisances. We don't. So it's not something for tonight, and all this came down unfortunately when Grant is enjoying a European vacation, so our expert on this wasn't available to talk with us. But that's something that needs to be considered in the months down the road. Do we need to button up our ordinances? And the last thing I wanted to touch base on is that we heard a lot of comments about the dogs. We do have ordinances dealing with both dangerous dogs and cruelty to animals, which I think we heard some comments believing residents thinking both of those things going on. My hope is now that the owner is apparently off the property in custody, that may give the police department some ability to deal with the dog situation. But a lot of staff put in a lot of time on this over the course of the week. As Martin said, he had several meetings with the property owners, was keeping them informed, and had a lot of discussions with Councilmember Mead. So I think we were pretty responsive to the concerns that were expressed at the last meeting. So go ahead, Martin.
And a bit further on that regarding the dogs. They were removed by PD this afternoon and are now at the Everett Animal Shelter. Right. So,
great.
The last report is staff as our finance director will provide the financial report for the month ending August 31st. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Council. The financial report for the period ending August 31st of 2025 represents about 33% of our activity. The general fund revenues and the general fund expenditures are both below the benchmark. But this report, your key takeaway will be that our general fund expenditures are outpacing our revenues. And with the data that we know now, our outlook is that the gap between our expenditures and our revenues will continue to be in the red unless we increase our revenues or find new revenues. Thank you.
Any questions, staff reports? Any other staff reports?
No other reports, Mayor, thanks.
Okay, I got a number of things to go over tonight. First, we had a very nice push-in ceremony last week with South County Fire. Council members Duque and Paddock were able to join. Had some good, I'm sorry?
We did most of the pushing.
We did, yeah, that's right. It was a nice little event. Several of the commissioners were there. Had a chance to interact with staff, but all in all, I think it was a nice refresh and start a new beginning, as we said, with our relationship with South County. I want to thank the staff for everything they did to get ready for Senator Levick and his Senate Law and Justice Committee meeting that was in here. I think I commented at the time, the room was so packed, which we usually don't see unless we've done something wrong. But it was a great turnout and good representation for the city. We had the regional collaboration meeting that we've been having, that Mayor Rosen from Edmonds has been organizing. It was an interesting meeting. Half of the discussion was a presentation from a representative from the Housing Authority of Snohomish County and someone from Housing Hope, talking about two things. We want to talk about some of the challenges that they face with providing low-income housing and affordable housing projects. But they also were talking about opportunities with some tax dollars that have come to our way, to the cities, and also to the county. So remember that under, I think it's 1406 or we get a remittance of a portion of the state's portion of the sales tax comes back to us to use for affordable housing. I think we get 28,000 or so a year. We've probably got about 70,000 or so accumulated, maybe a little more, a little less. But that's one of the things I've mentioned before, that we don't really have a good sense of what our options are for using that money and how it could really make an impact. And then the flip side of that is the county, under a different bill, 1590, has been collecting portion of the state sales tax. I think that's where it comes from. And through the South County mayors, we've been frustrated because we've been trying to get some information out of the executive's office of how much they have, what they're doing with it, how it's being used. But that's, I think I mentioned $60 million. So that was the discussion was, how can we work together to identify, to put those funds to the best use, but particularly for us, how we can utilize our funds. So they're going to be coming back with some other suggestions. The two other things I'll note from that, we've talked about flock cameras before and the public records issue. The city of Stanwood was faced with some public records requests on this, and they filed a declaratory judgment action in Superior Court to have a court rule, are they subject to the PRA or not? So I think that's been a concern for jurisdictions that haven't done it, or even those that have. I'm not sure, ours aren't fully operational yet, so I doubt we've received any public records requests, but at some point, we probably will, depending on what happens with that lawsuit. So something to watch. And the last thing I'd mention from that meeting was, I was asking, what do the other cities do for pavement preservation? Pavement preservation, since we've had not a lot of luck with either chip seal or slurry seal, it seems. But I was interested to hear Mountain Lake Terrace's response. They don't do any. They just do the grind and overlay. And so that's, I raised with Martin, and something for us to discuss at a future meeting. Would we be better off considering, and I don't know if it would work, just letting the roads degrade a little further, not to the point of Trillium's at where it's a complete failure, so you have to redo the base. But would we be better off hearing what our residents' reaction has been to having a scheduled to do a grind and overlay schedule that, again, you let the road go a little bit further, but you don't deal with pavement preservation. So it was I was surprised to hear that a city had done that, but they have been. City chat, very successful. Thank you to Jody for organizing it. Martin was there. We had 22 people out at the senior center. Just really quickly, some of the issues we heard about, parking at the Vintage continues to be a major issue out there. There have a lot of questions about annexation and what we might do there. A lot of discussion about the budget. I heard many of them say, we'll maintain our level of service if that means raising your taxes. I didn't hear anyone say the opposite. And we did get a big compliment from one of the attendees thanking the city and the council for the steps we took on the shopping carts and the graffiti. They've noticed the improvements around the city, so it's good to hear that. Just a couple more things. I did receive a call after our discussion on utility taxes at a prior meeting from the general manager at Silver Lake, who I know from Boy Scouts. Our older boys were both in Troop 90. So he wanted to just let us know that they have some concerns about a utility tax, which would affect their utility. I'm not sure I fully understand it because I thought it was more of a pass through. But I suggested that he provide some written materials. And this was also on behalf of Alderwood, because we're served by those two sewer districts, split the service area. So it's a good conversation. I hadn't talked to Kurt in a while, but he just wanted to let us know that they've got some concerns, and I asked him to put them in writing, and we'll have further discussions about it as this moves forward. Almost done. Snohomish County Mayor's meetings. I've got a lot of meetings these days. AWC legislative agenda is being finalized. The 4 bullet points are enhance indigent defense caseload, or enhance indigent defense. And what that deals with, is you may have read about the state Supreme Court decision that's lowered the caseload threshold for public defenders, meaning there's fewer cases that they're able to handle, which means we have to hire more public defenders, which means we have to pay more for public defender services. Second issue is improve housing supply. Increase sustainability for local transportation, O&M, and preserve shared state revenues. And that's going to be a big one because I don't know if you heard, I think the latest revenue forecast came out today, and they're an additional $903 million. Is million or billion? Billion. 903 million. Yeah, 903 million. The budget's for 72 billion. So that's important because at the regional collaboration meeting, someone mentioned that there's talk about calling back some of those sales tax remittance funds that were made available to us. So they always seem to look at the cities first. So, and the last item I was pleasantly surprised to see Master Builders, our Blueprint magazine, which is our annual publication. We moved away from a quarterly publication. And if you turn to page 21, you can see the back of my head. That's me testifying to the Senate. That's the picture I got. I didn't get the frontal picture yet. So I told my boss, that's my goal, is to get a front picture next year. So anyway, that was, it's still there. Yeah. That means it looks good. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, did you have any report?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for handling all those things and me not being able to make it since I was sick with COVID and missed out on all the fun over the past few weeks. But I'm feeling better, and also want to add in just an answer to you that regarding the discussions that we keep having as mayors and mayor pro tems on how that extra tax is going for the that the county is taking for the public safety and health, and I forget exactly what it's called, but we are pushing on that to get answers through SCT, because Brian Wall and I are the co-chairs of the exploratory committee, and we were just bringing that up this week too, to really push on that we want some answers on how they're handling that, and specifically on how they are spending for South County, because we would like to know, just so you're aware that we're doing that. That's all the reports I have since I was out.
Councilmember Steckler.
Mine's pretty quick too. First of all, I just want to make sure we don't let this meeting go without a shout out to our finance director, Ermina Lombard. Thank you, Ermina, for the great audit. Sometimes you forget when there's one great audit after another great audit after another great audit after another great audit, you start to expect it, and we shouldn't, we want it, yes, we should expect it, but we shouldn't diminish it by not recognizing this is good work. Audits are, sometimes they're not getting a notice or recommendation is quite remarkable considering all the moving parts and stuff. So again, congratulations to you. And on a side note, to my day job, which rarely I bring up, but I had a chance to sit down with the General Counsel of Korea recently for the whole Northwest United States. And she was talking about on November 7th, which is just about 30 days, not too far away, is the 80th anniversary of freedom for Korea from colonial rule. And considering we have a very large Korean population in Mill Creek, so I know we'll probably do a proclamation, but it'd be good if we want to think about what else we might want to do. It would be appreciated, I know, by a large segment of our population. Just wanted to kind of bring that as an FYI. And my last question was, I saw the rollout, which unfortunately I couldn't attend. Is there any public notice, plans for any kind of public notice about Station 76 and the staffing levels going back to normal, or just kind of let it go? I was just curious.
We haven't talked about it. We could, I think. I think
There's-
most people are aware of it by now.
Yeah, I know we all are, but I'm wondering about the citizens who heard about it and read about. There was,
We can ask Martin to talk with Jody and. about
yeah,
it.
there was letters and written to the editors and published, and
Okay.
I think it'd be good to let the population know it's not an issue anymore. I'll add one other thing too. I also want to thank staff for the quick response to the situation with our homeowner abuse situations, senior abuse situations. I really appreciate how quick that response was. That's impressive. Thank you.
Councilmember Ellison,
No report.
Councilmember Duque.
Yes, I just wanted to say that, I agree absolutely with Councilmember Steckler. If there's not something on the website that talks about what we were dealing with when it comes to Station 76 and staffing, we should definitely do so. But Mill Creek View covered, had an article on the front page. It's Mill Creek's medic unit is back. That's just the headline, and there's more information. What I found was interesting is that South County Fire submitted something to the paper as well, and it was the difference between EMT and paramedic, which was a discussion that we had. So anyways, back to what I was gonna do. Last week I attended the Lunch and Learn for the Mill Creek Chamber of Commerce. Once again, reminder that you are always welcome and invited to come to these Lunch and Learn events. And just let me know if you'll be able to. Everything the mayor said about the attendance, I just wanted to say for the pushing for Station 76, it was the first time I participated in something like that. And it was fantastic. I really appreciate it. And it was great to see our state senator, John Lovick, also attend that. And then many of us came over here, and he wanted, I know he's written a letter, I believe, to staff and to council members, in terms of like the staff's wonderful work in putting that event together here when you have also many other things, but he just wanted to make sure that I shared it in my report, and I said I would. The legislative committee meets tomorrow. So just as a FYI, we're getting back to that again. And I wanted to just two kudos. I really appreciate these monthly city manager meetings that we as council members have the opportunity to do. I feel very well informed about thought process about where we are in between. So I just wanted to say thank you again for City Manager Yamamoto for these opportunities, because I find them incredibly helpful to have these discussions and to understand not just his opinion, but staff's opinion, and also specifically hearing what he's heard about other council members' thoughts, because we don't always get to see each other outside of chamber. So I find that incredibly helpful in coming to terms with things there. And finally, what an incredible day for proclamations that we had. And it was wonderful to have the first two and to be able to present it. I really love that we have this opportunity to have our council meetings attended for such wonderful proclamations. And I know we didn't hear, I know it's not normal practice what happened after the second one for someone to come and speak about it, but this to stand up, but that was, I hope, incredibly important for us to all remember. This is why we do these proclamations. So even if we don't have anyone, I know the last meeting we had Hispanic Heritage Month, and there was no one here, but these things are really important to talk about, like our values and what we appreciate and how we are as a city. So thank you very much for everyone who contributes to those.
Councilmember Pettit.
A couple of things, just ditto the appreciation for how the city and county just jumped all over that homeowner situation. Point of clarification, I was the one that actually requested that each week or on a regular basis, we get an update from staff on status, because I think that really shows that we're committed to making that correction, and appreciate that the city had done that. Yes, and to the push of the fire vehicle, it was $1 million in 4 years in coming. So as much as it's been kind of frustrating with some of the commissioners, you know, they put their money where their mouth is with this particular engine, and should be appreciated for that. And I know we all do. And speaking of appreciation, I just want to commend the finance committee and excuse me, the finance director for really putting together a very well thought out, that she shared with the committee, a very well thought out project plan on how they're going to walk through kind of where we are now, which is, as was mentioned, an accelerating operational deficit. I think it was, you know, it's red and it's only getting redder. But put together a real project plan to say, here's the information that we're going to deliver they're going to deliver at each meeting, and how that's going to help lead towards how big's the problem, what are our options to address it, what are the challenges that we'll face if we don't address it, and then how do we vote? And I think that having that well planned out process will allow us to, I think, make informed decisions, even if they're not decisions that all seven agree to. We're all looking at the same set of facts and same set of conditions and whatnot, and coming back, I think, with something that hopefully will help us close that gap. I'm sure everybody saw this in their email. This Keeping Up with the Creek little newsletter. On the back, it has I guess the line of death. I didn't have that on the back, but budget wise. But I've had a couple of folks reach out about this, because it talks about where we are from a budget perspective. It talks about those darned e-bikes in a way that was really clear, and what the city's doing about that. And I thought this was really well received. I don't know if HOA boards or whatnot get this, but I know we've got their email addresses someplace. It'd be awesome to get this out to all the HOAs as well, because I think it was a great newsletter. And speaking of that, I was on Seattle Hill Road. You know, we had the two traffic officers here the last meeting. I was on Seattle Hill Road. The guy I don't want to name the officer, because I'm sure that's not what we're supposed to do, but the one that drives the Dodge Charger had two like massive vehicles stopped, right? So he had both of them, which was great, because clearly they were going over the speed limit and they were massive. Go to Town and Country. I was on my way to Town and Country. I come this way because I always like to drive through here just to make sure that Martin's working. And I saw the same officer had pulled over two of the e-bike kids, and he's sitting there basically telling them like what you're supposed. And they were all wearing the right gear and all that stuff, but having the conversation with them about what they're supposed to do. And you know, again, I think I talked about this a couple of sessions ago. That's the benefit of a full staff, is having that type of coverage and connection with the community. I mean, you know, good and bad, but the connection with the community on that. And just wanted to commend the staff, and I wish Chief White was here to hear that, because obviously he's got a ton to do in that. One of the things that the Planning Commission report was attached. One of the things that was talked about on Thursday night, Director Ryan and Planner Horn, I think, did a really terrific job in coordinating the implementation of kind of how the permitting and, this new this new tool for permits is being implemented and how the fee study that needs to go with it so that we're implementing, you know, a set of fees that have been normalized to norms across, you know, other cities and whatnot. And then kind of reconciling what how we communicate to the community about that all in one swap, rather than doing it piecemeal or going backwards and having to rewrite something or whatnot. Again, I just think it's a great example of operational effectiveness by our city staff. And thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that. You're saving us a lot of money and will probably make us a lot of money now that we're not paying more for services to do fees that we get less money for. So awesome job.
Audience communication, Dennis.
Hi, Tanis Kolbieski, Mill Creek. Very briefly, I just want to go on record saying that the staffing at Station 76 is not back to where it was 6 months ago. It is back to where it was when we annexed, but I think there's an important distinction there that we do not have a fully staffed medic unit. So I think that council did a fantastic job, council and staff coming together and working with the commissioners to get this changed. I think it's a really good step in the right direction. And I think it's probably time for residents in Mill Creek and in the entire RFA to look at what is this redeployment? What does it mean to put a paramedic on a fire engine instead of a medic unit? Is it good enough? What do we think about it? And go from there. But good step in the right direction. Fantastic push-in ceremony last week. We're not where we were 6 months ago. So I just want to make sure that's clear. We have the same number of people in the station. We do not have 2 paramedics staffing a medic unit, which is what we had 6 months ago.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone online? Not seeing anything. We have nothing further on the agenda other than to report the Mariners scored 3 with 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th to take a 4-3 lead into the 9th inning. So on that note, I will adjourn the meeting at 9:07 so we can go watch the end of the game.
Yay!